Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order City Council Workshop, February 6, 2013, approximately 6:30, for interviews of board applicants. We'll jump right into this. Mike, you're up.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Good, good. Let me go right to the council. I'm sure you've introduced yourself a few times before us, and we know you. So, questions, Lorraine?
Yeah, Mike, I would just say your number one choice is to be on the CRA Advisory Committee, and just tell us a little bit about why you want to be on that board and what you see that board doing.
For the 7 years, I've served in some capacity for the city, and I've sat on many boards and served as liaison to the other boards I haven't sat on. The CRAC board is going to be challenging. There's a lot of work to do on that board, and I'd like to be a part of that. The mayor had a great article in the newspaper, I believe it was last weekend. That was a good cornerstone for what the CRA, or what the CRAC committee can do in the future coming up. There is room for improvement within the city. That board is going to require some level of knowledge from its participants. I have knowledge of the land development regulations, Chapter 30. I think that'll be a benefit to the board moving forward. I am an engineer and a student basically by trade. I look at all sides of the argument, and I try to understand, and I do understand the elements before I make a decision. And I think I can be of some value to that board.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Any further questions, Lorraine? Moving on to anyone else?
Sure.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
Nothing for Mike, but how are we going to handle the?
We're doing interviews right now. We'll get to what we're going to do after we do interviews.
Okay.
Okay, I just doing the interviews, and then I have a plan that I want to present to everyone. Any questions for Mike?
Just a comment, Mike, I'm glad to see you getting back involved again. I saw
you.
a lot of strengths and a lot of positive things from your work, and I'm glad you're interested in participating again. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it, if chosen.
And I would echo those same comments. I know, we've worked together in the past on different things, and I think you'd be a good candidate for that board.
Thank you.
Mike, thank you. One question, and time on this board is okay, fits your schedule?
Yes, it does.
Okay, thank you very
It
much.
does.
Any further questions, Mike? Mike, thanks. Appreciate
Excused to leave,
it.
you're
You're
anything
excused.
else?
No,
Excellent.
you're excused. Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy your evening.
Yeah, please leave. We're going to talk about you now.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
Okay, James Rodney Smith. Had to get that in, when I... Welcome, Rodney.
Good evening, everyone.
As we know you, but I'll let you go ahead and explain why you'd want to be on the community redevelopment.
Well, I'm, as you said, James Rodney Smith, and I live at 265 South Robert Way. And, well, I originally came for the Comprehensive Planning Advisory Board because I got asked by different people, thought that I should be on that board, and then I got a letter here on the 31st of January about the CRAAC, and I thought that was fairly interesting. So what I want to say is I put my name in the pool for either of those. And I guess the reason, well, there's no guessing about it. I've got a vision for I have a contribution towards the vision for Satellite Beach in the future. And I think it might be maybe a little bit out of the norm. I've got large families, growing up in Satellite Beach, had businesses in Satellite Beach, and feel I get to enjoy the way Satellite Beach is. Our family really uses Satellite Beach, and because of that, I think we get to see it from a user viewpoint, and see some of the things that need to change in Satellite Beach in the future that can make it even more user-friendly. You know, when we look at our parks and our beach accesses and our Sampson's Island and things like that, and then, you know, of course, the potential with the change in development that'll happen in the next generation will be very interesting. You know, I've been on different boards and I've been active primarily with Sampson's Island, and I saw how it was just amazing how this community came in as volunteers and changed the 52-acre Squirrel Island and made it what it is today, which is really one of the greatest jewels we have in our community. So I'm excited about being able to be part of what I see as that change in Satellite Beach that's going to happen, just like it happened at Sampson's Island. That's kind of how I look at Satellite Beach. I mean, not quite the Squirrel Island, but there's a lot of changes that are coming, and I'd like to be part of that.
Thank you very much. Questions? Mark?
Weren't you on the board, the crack board, before it was?
Yes, I was.
So that was, how did you find that experience?
Well, I certainly don't come at it at the same level that Mike Chase does, and I'm so glad to see that he's going to put himself out there for the community again, you know, because like he says, he's an engineer and he's been on a lot of different boards and he sees it at a different level than I do. I kind of looked at it and I was coming up to speed, even though it had been 2 years almost that I was on the.
I didn't know it was that long. Okay.
Yeah, almost 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but there's a lot to learn there, and I'm glad to see it's coming back. I think it's a really vital part of our community.
That's all I had, Mr. Mayor.
I just have one question. So your number one choice is the crack, correct? And then the second would be the Planning Advisory Board, Comprehensive Planning?
It would be the Comprehensive Planning Advisory Board. That would be my first. That's why I came originally.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's one, Rodney, and then the other one's two.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
And then you mentioned a letter that you received regarding the crack committee? You received a letter?
Yep.
All the people that were on the crack committee. And he
In the
was
past?
one of them. Well, he was one of them when the committee was disbanded. So all the people that were standing members when it was disbanded got letters.
Yeah. I think that was admirable of the city, and it showed that level of respect, and that those would be the first people to give a chance to go back in that same position.
So CPAB is your first choice?
Yes.
The position on CPAB is an alternate position. Were you aware of that? It's not.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're interested in the CPAB, it's going to be an alternate position.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that.
If you're looking at the CRA Advisory Board, you know, there are open positions there for
Right.
regular members.
Right.
So I just wanted to make you aware of that in case you wanted to change your numbering scheme here.
Well, perhaps that's the way it was meant to be.
Okay.
You know?
Well, also, just because you're an alternate does not mean that you shouldn't attend the meetings and participate in the discussion. The only thing you can't vote on motions,
And I think that
unless you're sitting in for a permanent member.
And that's a real good point to make, you know, for all alternates.
Yeah.
Because that's the way you come into speed when someone has to fall out for so many things that happen in today's world.
Right.
Yeah.
So
So
our alternates are not really second-class citizens. They're very much part of the board.
Well, I think that's, you know, and I know, I have a bit of a grasp of how difficult that job could be. You know, I find that would be the more of the two boards, that would be the one that would be more demanding, in my opinion.
I've known Rodney and I've worked with Riley for a long time. He's a visionary kind of person, and he's looking out into the future, and I think that board would suit you.
So thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
I know Rodney forever, and thank you. He does a lot of work in the community, for the kids especially. That's great. Any other questions, Rodney? I'm good. Rodney, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Before we get our next applicant, we sent letters out to both old groups, the one that was just disbanded, the members there, and the other one. So everybody who had participated in CRA board or the other got a letter.
I don't remember discussing. That's
We
fine.
did, yeah. I'm sure we did, that the instructions was given at a council meeting. Okay? Okay. James Strayer. Jim, thank you. Good evening. How are you?
Not too bad, how are you?
Good.
Nice to see you, Frank.
Nice to see you. Just, tell us a little bit about yourself, even though I've known you for many, many years.
About myself, I'm a retired pharmacist, and I'm looking for something to do. I was in the Air Force for 25 and a half years, and then I was with Walgreens for 15 years, and I've been retired, and I'm playing a lot of tennis and biking. It's just, my wife thinks I should probably get a little more active, but here I am.
Thank you. I've known Jim for a number of years in baseball and everything, and I think it'd be a great addition to the rec board, a great addition. So I really have no questions myself for him. Anyone else?
I would just comment that in reading your application, it does seem like you're really well suited for the rec board, and so you seem like a natural fit for that.
And I've known Jim for a while, too. He actually served on the Comprehensive Planning and Zoning Board for a while. Back about 8 or 9 years ago, so.
Was it that long ago?
Yeah, it probably was. Time flies, Jim. But I think you'd be a great resource on the rec board, of which I'm the liaison to, so we'll get to see you.
Yeah, I realize it's an alternate position too, so.
Mark?
Just rec board in general, what ideas, concepts do you think you can bring to the rec board as far as where we are now, Jim, and where you think we can go
Of course,
to?
I'm going to push tennis, but other than that, no, I think I am so proud of what the city has done, what Kerry has done for athletics here. It's amazing. I just want to maintain that, see that continues. I want to know a little bit more about lacrosse too, but I just think we're in the right direction, and let's not let this thing fall down.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have. Cheryl, any?
No, is that correct? You play tennis 3 times a day? That's impressive.
Is that what I put?
Yeah.
Well, could you change that to weekly?
Maybe you were in some of those
I was in kind of a hurry
pharmaceuticals.
when I filled that whole application out, by the way. I'm sorry. My penmanship was right pretty well.
Any further questions? Jim, thanks very much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Okay, moving on. Philip Welsh? Good evening. Welcome.
Thanks.
Just tell us a little bit about yourself and
Yeah, so Phil Welsh, live at 720 South Robin Way. My wife and I moved there about 3 years ago with our 1-year-old child, Grayson. I was just looking to get a little more involved in the city. I noticed there was an alternate position in the Planning and Zoning Board. That's actually what I planned on putting in my application, the P&Z Board. So, my limited experience in planning and zoning, my father owns a commercial construction company, Welsh Construction, and kind of been involved in different aspects of site plan approval in different municipalities. And I was fascinated with the P&Z Board and thought as an alternate member it might be a good way to kind of get your feet wet in the city and what's going on. I am an electrical engineer by trade. Right now, currently president of Paul Davis Restoration and Remodeling of Space Coast around Melbourne, in Melbourne on Galley Boulevard, specialize in water, fire, and mold issues. But yeah, so that's kind of what I'm looking, just kind of get a little more involved and see what I can contribute.
okay, thank you. Cheryl, start with your question.
Phil, I think you got a great background, but just one question. Did you say you wanted to, there's an alternate on the Planning and Zoning Advisory Board, and you had checked off Comp Plan Advisory Board?
Correct, yeah, the P&Z Board.
Okay, P&Z.
Yeah,
So which are you applying for?
the P&Z Board,
P&Z?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure why I checked that, to be honest with you. Honestly, I don't even know what the comprehensive board, what that entails.
That's what, yeah, okay. Excellent.
So again, you are okay with an alternate membership?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Being relatively new in the process, I think that'd be a good way to get a good understanding.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to thank you for being a new resident of the city, and congratulations on your 1-year-old.
Thanks.
I think we're seeing a transition in Satellite Beach of new families moving in, and it's great that you're stepping up. Other than planning and zoning, is there anything else that you're interested
Yeah, I hadn't really thought through anything else. Like I mentioned before, the planning and zoning is really the only thing I've really experienced, particularly with other municipalities. I haven't really built much in Satellite Beach, but so I don't know. I mean, I'm definitely open if you think there might be a good fit for a younger.
You know, we're seating the Community Redevelopment Advisory Committee, and that consists of the two corridors, A1A and South Patrick, and future development that could go on those parcels. Actually, they make recommendations to the council, but that might be something that, you know, might be up your alley too.
Yeah, definitely be open.
It's a 9-member board with 2 alternates, so there's going to be seats there, and you know, that might be something you might be interested in.
Yeah, I'd definitely be open to that. I didn't really know much about that board, so, but yeah.
Well, from what you're
open.
saying about your dad's construction business and being able to look at site plans and development issues, that's basically what is probably going to be happening with that board. That's the board that, the newspaper article that was in Sunday's paper about
Right.
100 acres up there. I mean,
Okay.
even though that's not in the CRA district, there are other parcels of property along A1A that are, and that's where, you know, all of that development and redevelopment is going to take place.
Sure. Yeah, that definitely sounds interesting.
Okay. So we can put you down for
Sure.
that one for number
Yeah.
2?
Yeah, that's fine.
Lorraine?
None, thank you.
No? Any further questions? Phil, thank you. Time-wise, the days,
Yeah, no,
everything are...
no problem.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Any further questions? Nope. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks a lot.
I have a couple items I'd like to throw out here to discuss. Looking at the applications that are either in or have called and said they will be turning them in, it will bring the count up to 18 more that we have not, that we'll have to interview. Okay? Now, I'm just throwing
18
things.
more?
18 more. Count the back of the sheet plus 1, 2, 3, 4 that I was given tonight, brings the total to 18 plus a couple we did tonight.
And there may be one other one coming in
Right.
too.
Given that, let me throw an idea, and again, just to throw ideas that I know we can't vote on because it's a workshop, but some of these people we are extremely familiar with. Do we need to bring a Dave Schechter in for an interview?
No.
So all I'm looking at is saying if we have 18 people and we have a consensus on the ones we either need to interview because they're new to us, or ones we don't want to interview because we've already known them in our city for a long time, think about that for council meeting on how we're going to handle 18 of them. Because if we give everybody 10 minutes, and let's just throw out 10 minutes, 180 minutes worth of, that's 3 hours worth of workshops. So,
Can we go through this list and maybe pick the people?
well, I'm not sure we can do it. This is a workshop, so we can't vote on it. We'd have to do it
Yeah,
on
let me-
council.
our,
Just throwing out the idea.
I went and checked the rules,
Okay.
council policies and procedures, and they say that we shall interview people for their initial appointment to a board. However, the way I view this, there are several on here who were on that board, and to me, they're not new appointments. And we know these folks, and I personally don't see the need to interview them. And I think that the way the council policies and procedures are worded, that would allow us... That would allow us to forego the interviews on those individuals.
So what you're saying is if they were on the board before, we're going to reinstate them?
No, well,
We're just not going to interview them?
Right, we need to bring Dave Schechter in.
No, I mean,
That's all.
I know Dave, but I don't know, I mean, I don't know the rest of the
So
people.
what I'm saying is if, that's all, what I'm saying is,
I mean, I know them, but
right, all I'm saying is if we know and we have a consensus, and we don't have to interview them because we've interviewed them and they've been on other boards, it just saves us time to get it going because we've got at least 18 at this point to go. So something to think about for council meeting.
So when do we make that decision? We make that
I think
decision
our meeting next
after
week.
this?
Yeah. The other thing I want to bring up is to think about is how we are going to handle the appointment of this board. If we have 18, do we just have the 18 and each of us pick 9? since it's a 9-member board, and then you count up the votes. So,
That's certainly one way.
well, that's one, again, I just,
In the past, we've done them with a numbering system where we started with 9 being, like your top choice, and you go from 9 to 1, and then you do the same thing with alternates after you've picked your 9 people. And that's one way rather than just picking people, outright.
well, again, just think of a way, because we've got to get them picked. We've got to get this board up and going. We've got some things that obviously have kind of sat there fell through the cracks in a way that I think we need to get going on. So think about how you want to handle this so we can get it going. Okay? Any other business? Meeting's adjourned. I'd like to call to order the City Council meeting of the City of Satellite Beach, February 6, 2013, approximately 7 p.m. Please rise for a moment of silence and a pledge by Vice Mayor Breimer.
We can have a moment of silence, please. If you join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Good evening. Just to open it up for citizens' comments. These are on non-agenda items.
Sherry D'Amato, residents. I've just been looking at houses, and I've been looking at Indian Harbor Beach, and there was a house same size, same pool, same size lot. And so I came home and I checked their taxes. Their taxes were $780. Mine are $1790. They have a police department, they have a fire department, they have a rec department with the big pool, parks. Where's my other $1,000 going? To what? I would like an answer on that. Can anybody answer me where it's going?
I'd like to. I'll start. Well, I think we offer a little more than they do. I believe our fire department is a much higher ranking fire department than they do, with all the paramedics and the medical side that we offer the residents. If you look at just that one issue, to me, the $1,000 would be worth it from a health standpoint. I don't think if the statistics that are there that I've seen from a person who suffers a major cardiac event, that our department has a 58% survival rate compared to the national average, which is somewhere between 28 and 38. So I think we do offer more there. If you look at our recreation department, we do have an incredible recreation department. We have many ball fields, football field, rec, skate parks. So I think that program has just been an outstanding program. And we're an accredited police department, and which, if I'm not mistaken, Indian Harbor Beach is not accredited. So I think we do offer a lot here for the dollar. What I have found that people are interested in those extra services that are provided by the city.
So that would be a time and a half more?
It is whatever you perceive that value to yourself to be. I live in the city because I perceive the value of what I personally want to be worth the difference that I pay in taxes. And so I like the services that are provided for me. Are my services worth the service, the dollar that I'm paying? And again, everybody has a different answer to that, but I'm going to tell you, if you're asking me personally, the taxes that I pay, I think are worth the services that are provided from this city. Now, I don't know if anybody else wants to answer.
The other thing you have to realize too is they have 10% across the board on every utility in Indian Harbor Beach. So they offset their ad valorem tax with the taxes that people pay on their cable bill, their water bill.
Well, I think we do too, don't we?
No, we don't.
We don't have any?
We have 6% on your electric bill.
Okay, so we do have some.
We have 6%.
Yeah.
So
okay.
you had, my cable bill, my Bright House Networks bill is $160 some odd a month. Put 10% on that and then multiply it by 12, And it's a substantial.
But you're saying it is on the cable bill and it is on the electric bill.
In Indian Harbor Beach, it is.
No, in satellite.
It is not.
It's not, in satellite's not on the electric bill?
Not on Bright House Networks, no.
No, electric, FPNL.
6% is on your electric bill.
Okay, so
And that's been there since the 90s.
Okay, but I don't think it's going to be $1,000 more.
I'm not here, are you? You asked us a question to tell
I'm
you.
Okay.
giving you an answer.
All right.
Thank you. Any, yes, ma'am.
Nancy Wilberg, resident. I just want to say that I think the Cassia project is fabulous. It's enhanced the city tremendously, and the paved crosswalks are great, but I don't believe that a lot of people really know that those are crosswalks, especially the new one they added across Cassia on Kale. There are many people that just go through that when people are standing to go across. Is there any way they can put up signs saying stop for pedestrians, like the ones in Publix?
They will look into that.
Because it's especially the ones crossing Cassia, not the ones, you know.
Right, okay, not the side streets.
Not side streets, but the one, there's two new ones. I mean, one new one by Kale and then the one by Temple. But, I mean, it looks fabulous, but I don't believe people really realize those are crosswalks.
Hey, Jeff, check into that one for you.
Yeah, and I can appreciate what she's saying, because now you no longer have the sidewalk abutting the road and a swale, so people are used to just crossing wherever, so it's really important to kind of direct them to those crosswalks.
Correct. Thank you very much. Any further citizens' comments? Okay, hearing none. Move on to city council comments. Start, Cheryl.
Just one thing, my town hall meeting is tomorrow night at 7 o'clock at the Pelican Beach Clubhouse. See you there.
The regular meeting, January meeting of the Comprehensive Planning Board was canceled for lack of an agenda item, and the South Beaches Coalition meeting for this month will be held tomorrow, and I will be attending that. That will be my first meeting back with that group, so after I basically get the lay of the land on that, I'll be able to provide some more information to council about what they're up to. In addition to that, the TPO, Transportation Planning Organization, their agenda for this month has some planning documents in it. These are online, and I'm going to be asking the city clerk if she would make copies. I'll point out which ones I think would be interesting for you all to have, because it is important for us to know what the TPO is doing, if for no other reason than sometimes they're a source of grant money for us. But we're all part of that planning region, so we should be kept up on what's going on. I attended Louise Stevenson's retirement party. There were a lot of people in attendance showing how highly regarded she was, and I just want to add my thanks to all of her years of service to the city. The fabulous rec department that we have is there in large part because of her efforts.
Thank you very much.
I also attended Louise's party, and I echo Lorraine's comments. And I would also like to just thank the people that provided the resources for that party, because it was paid for by people, I believe. And I also attended the sign unveiling for Mike Crotty, and that was very well attended. And once again, Shirley did a good job collecting money from people to help offset the cost of the sign, and it was a great event. And the Board of Adjustment meeting for Monday night was canceled, so there was no meeting for lack of an agenda on that one either. That's all I have.
And I won't belabor it. I attended the same events as Lorraine and Dom, so I'll pass it back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I have attended most of those events. They were great. I also attended a couple of meetings, more than a couple of meetings on the school closure. Guess we've got to sit and wait and see now. They're very, very interesting in attending them. So I really don't have a feeling for it. A lot of the cities were there. Chuck Nelson did kind of a round table discussion last week, and a lot of great points were brought up. really on both sides, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens. A couple changes in meetings, if it's okay. 14th being Valentine's Day, I'd like to move the CRA meeting to the 13th. Councilwoman Dean has asked to remove the KPEG report, which she had asked to bring on the 13th. So that leaves the 13th open, and we move CRA to the 14th, if that is consensus with everybody.
Works for me.
Works, okay. And I also attended the Mike Crotty sign. Cheryl, thanks. Great job.
For your contributions.
It was great, and thank you. Okay, moving on. City Attorney's report.
I have nothing.
Thank you. City Manager?
Yes, sir. Several meetings ago, I was asked to look into the bicycle pedestrian path plan that was referenced at a recent meeting. We were able to locate that plan. It was referenced at page 2.2 or 2-2 in the policy 134 of the comp plan. And that is in the packet, and it's also, I believe it's online now for citizens or anybody who want to look at it. It was done a little while ago, but I was asked to look for it, find it, that it might be interesting for the council to have it. That study was done, and so you have it. The voting representative for the Transportation Planning Organization, Councilwoman Goddard just mentioned it, but the question was asked, who is the voting delegate, if you will, of the South Beach Coalition to the Transportation Planning Organization? And the way I understand it is that when the host city, there's a host city for 2 years, and then the representative of that host city would be the voting member. We were the host city. Councilman Higginson was the voting member. We are no longer the host city anymore. It's now Indian Harbor Beach. So Indian Harbor Beach is the host city, which means they have the voting delegate of the South Beach Coalition of the TPO, and that is Deputy Mayor Scott Nickel. Again,
And if I could add to that, if the host city does not want to be the voting rep on the TPO, then that host city gets to designate who will be among the South Beaches cities.
thank you. Also, for Carrie, wanted to mention that Jerry Cancro of On Target conducted a Florida Handgun Safety and Training class, and it was well represented. There's 15 students, and he donated all the proceeds back to the city from that. So he's offering the service, he's offering, should anybody desire, and then he's also kicking all the proceeds back. She just wanted to make you all aware of that. There's several other safety classes coming up that can be handled through the rec department if anybody's interested. The Cassia Improvement Project was touched on. That is basically 99% complete. Really, at this point, they're just working out the punch list. I was told by Alan Potter, Public Works Director, that it came in under budget, but doesn't have all the numbers yet to let you know exactly what, but I just did want to mention that it did come in under budget and that it is pretty much done with some of the punch list. I have two other things that I wanted to have department heads just report on very briefly that I wasn't able to put in here, but I think it's timely and it's important. The acting police chief, Brad Hodges, wanted to give a quick update on school safety and the things that not only Satellite Beach has done, but Satellite Beach has championed in county-wide and some of the initiatives. So, Brad.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Very briefly, Satellite Beach has done a number of things since the tragedy at Sandy Hook. Of course, we all know since then that school safety has come to the forefront again, once again since Columbine. But we've kind of always had it in our minds from the very beginning. I believe Mr. Breimer was on the council that awarded us some money for our emergency response team that has been up and running since then. But what we haven't had a chance to do is really get into the schools and interact with them, with the teachers, with the administrators, to kind of talk to them about mentally preparing for the unlikely but possibility that such an event could happen in a public school. And that's really what we've been lacking and been looking for the opportunity to do. And so we don't really wait around to see what everybody else does, and we kind of took the lead in early January, and we prepared a presentation and took it to all of our schools except for one, which is scheduled for next week. And we did these presentations for the entire staff, the cafeteria staff, the custodial workers, the teachers, all the faculty and staff, and it basically was an open discussion about the what-ifs, mentally preparing, and something we do in law enforcement all the time. to get them to understand that there are going to be some actions that if they take can potentially save lives. And my fiance is an elementary school teacher down in Indian-Atlantic, so we certainly don't go into these presentations trying to scare anybody out of teaching. I think they have enough fears with dealing with the kids that we don't have to help that. But just really to facilitate that discussion, because how they react in the first couple minutes is really going to make all the difference in the world. Our response time at Satellite Beach, we were just pulling the numbers last week for future levels of service. Emergency response time is 2 minutes, under 2 minutes to emergencies. And so what we instill upon them is that buying time for 2 minutes in the program that we put on and being mentally just ready to take action and to protect themselves and their kids and not going through life with the it won't happen here mentality was very well received. We got some great feedback. And so I went to a chief's meeting with the sheriff and the director of school security last week, and we discussed our program and what we've put together. And it was met with such good reception that the Sheriff's Department asked that we be the model for the county to present this at all the schools, all the public schools, and private schools in Brevard County. So I'm working with that office to come up with a PowerPoint presentation and to get some people certified to give the presentation. So we're proud to say that what we've done here in taking the lead will, at least part of it, will go on to the county schools, and who knows, maybe beyond that. But we think we are onto something good, and we've done a good thing.
Thank you very much. Let me ask, is there any questions from council on this?
No, but I would just make the comment that this is typical of our police department since I've been associated with this city, and that's part of what we're getting for our taxes, that kind of leadership.
As far as the concept goes, what elements did you guys pull together? I mean, in other words, if it's just well received, Brad, what kind of concepts did you pull together that made this that well received?
Well, I'm glad the fire department's here. They didn't do theirs before me, because the fire department gets much better grades than police when it comes to preparedness. If you look around this building, and you can't really see them, but they're there. There's going to be sprinklers, there's fireproof doors, there's fireproof windows, there's exit signs that will illuminate until, after the apocalypse, and they won't go out. And the fire department has prepared us for those things, and they've done a great job about it, with it. But unfortunately, when it comes to the law enforcement aspect of talking to teachers and administrators about the possibility that someone can come into your school and start killing children, was not very well received. And we did it for a little bit after Columbine. We tried to do it a little bit after 9/11 because we saw those as soft targets, and it kind of faded away. And so after Sandy Hook and the immense, unbelievable, unthinkable acts that took place there, the school leadership realized that it's time for a change and it's time to talk. So we started talking to other professionals and people that are a lot smarter than me, and we started thinking about the fire aspect of it. And I interacted with these teachers at these faculty meetings, and I said, imagine right now if this fire alarm went off, you teachers would get up with robotic precision and march yourselves out, or if you were a classroom of 18, 25, 30 kids, and march them out to a safe place without even thinking about it. We would like that same type of response if they hear gunshots outside their door, but that's a real challenge. And so we throw out the flip charts. I think one of the first things I did was kind of toss mine aside at the school board meeting, and we made a joke about it. But if there's gunshots outside a classroom door, the last thing we're going to do is try and find that book and flip through it. It has to come from mental preparation by thinking about it. We're going to start with some tabletop exercises over the summertime. And again, an understanding from a standpoint of having a fiance that sits with me at night and says, Brad, what do I do if my classroom's on the playground and I hear gunshots? Because some teachers, in the course of me interacting with them, believe that they need to get them back into the school into safety, yet they may be leading them right into danger. And so understanding that we're on YouTube and not going in with just some specific procedures.
Exactly.
We're opening up the dialogue about mental preparation, how to handle those things, and then doing some tabletop exercises over the summertime, and also getting them to realize that it's just a matter of buying time until law enforcement arrives. And that's really what it's all about. And so I think this has been so hushed for so long that they are just thrilled that someone's coming in and talking to them about maybe things that they're having at home, at parties, or wherever, because they're unsure of, what's to happen next.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
I would like to comment, and a lot of you may not know this because you don't have children in middle school, but there was a suspicious person that was out on the Delora campus a couple weeks ago. And the school is also being very proactive about the situation. Because of social media, immediately, you're getting these texts and things where you're terrified thinking the school's locked down, but immediately the school sent out a phone message to your home phone and your cell phone letting everyone know that it was taken care of. So that was very reassuring as a parent also to know that. And they're also taking the kids through drills and things like that. So it was very reassuring that the school is also being proactive about these types of situations that you really just don't want to think about.
They're all having lockdown drills now, which is something that was really unheard of.
Yes.
We did lockdown drills, and I'm just impressed with how the principals have stepped up and the staff and the leadership has stepped up and kind of turned to law enforcement partners and said, okay, we're ready, tell us what we need to do. We just need to find that balance without scaring people and make sure that it's a reasonable approach.
Thank you. I am coming back, soon, so just thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And one last thing, the fire chief would like to make a real brief presentation. He's got some nice things to say.
It's always sad when we have to do this. So we have one of our family members is going to be moving on. And, when we think about law enforcement, we think about the police officers, it's more than just going on calls. They all do so much more than just go on calls. And so Nick, floored me a couple of weeks ago when he said that he was going to be moving on, and I cried for maybe an hour, I'm not sure. But at the end of the day, when it came to Nick, he's been with us 8 years, and as I said, it's more than just going on calls. 2007 and 8, when we kicked off our Communities for Lifetime initiative and our fall prevention program, Nick was the person from inside the organization, the champion from within inside the organization to carry that through, and was the one that has been doing the fall prevention in the homes. That when we go back and look at it from a data standpoint, we reduced fractured hips by over 40%. And that is so important because 20% of seniors 65 and older who fall and break a hip, they die from that injury. So it's not just, the going on the calls, it's all the other little things that you do. So Nick, here's what I'd like to say to you. In honor and dedication for the last 8 years of service to the city of Satellite Beach for providing both life-saving, and non-emergency services to the community. Thank you so much, buddy, and the door's open for you to come back. Excellent.
That's all I have, sir.
Thank you.
Just one thing?
Yes.
Regarding your report, Chief,
Sir.
I think it's a great idea to have the department heads come in and update us on things. Thanks so much for coming up with that and bringing that forward. I think it keeps the public involved in everything that we've talked about, so.
I agree completely.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on, we're going to move the agenda around a little bit because we have a time-sensitive number 7 agenda item, which is Resolution 924, is going to be an 8 o'clock Pacific. So at this time, we'll move on to agenda item number 8, discuss and take action on ordinance number 1063. Jim?
Ordinance, or proposed ordinance 1063 was prepared as a result of the right-of-way vacation that occurred last year, and then interim city manager Samuelson expressed some concern about there not being a specific provision regarding how the city processes these types of requests, and as a result, this ordinance was drafted, I think it was actually back in September or October, and then kind of got put on a back burner. It's my understanding the city has received, or there have been requests by individuals to have vacations considered again, and that's what's basically been the impetus to bring this back before council, and it's whether or not council wants to do this or not, and if so, it would be then brought back as an ordinance subject to whatever modifications council might want to see to this proposal.
Mayor, I'd just like to add one thing. Just to be clear, the impetus was because of the vacation requests that were received. However, those vacation requests would go through the process that we have now. We would not hold those and wait to see if an ordinance passes and then retroactively fit those people back in. Or at least that wouldn't be the way I would think that it should be done unless given direction otherwise. But it's staff's opinion, I guess, that there probably should at least be the discussion of whether we want to have an ordinance. So if there ever in the future is a vacation request, we've got an ordinance that outlines how we're going to handle it. That doesn't mean we're going to do it or not do it. It just means that there's a procedure in place to handle it. So it really at this point, before spending any more time to create this ordinance, we want to just get some direction.
There's a gentleman in the audience from Florida Power and Light, Mark Hillman. And Mark, you'd like to come up and tell us about it.
Thank you, Mark Hillman. I'm actually representing Florida Power and Light and AT&T. We did get the draft ordinance back in early October, and we provided comments on the 28th of October. And basically our comments are summarized by give us time, give us coordination, and let us be a part of the process. If this ordinance does go through, we need to be part of that process. As a part of the franchise agreement, we are in a lot of these areas because of the rights-of-way. So if you vacate the rights-of-way, we're all of a sudden out there without the authority to be there. So if there is a process, we want to make sure that we're coordinated. There's time enough for us to coordinate. Right now, we suggested 30 days rather than the 15 days, and basically allow FPL and AT&T time to coordinate on and make sure there isn't any current or future requirements in that rights-of-way. And if it is vacated, that we have time to secure the easement if necessary.
Okay. Any questions from council to Mark concerning the right-of-ways? Okay, thank you. So 30 days is your preferred.
Right, plus the other comments that we had submitted on the.
Okay.
Thank you for the input you all put together.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council comments?
Last year, that vacation that occurred broke a decades-long policy of not granting these requests. The exceptions to that were when there was a swimming pool situation, and in that case, the property owner had to get the concurrence of the utilities. But other than that, history of this city has taught us that when you give away these public rights-of-way or these easements, that down the road, sooner or later, a need will arise and your hands are tied. Right now, with that property where the vacation occurred, there is now a 6-foot opaque fence that extends down to the dune line. And now the neighbors, I understand, are unhappy because their view of the beach is blocked. And that's what we get for that. I think that we need to return to our policy of not vacating these public easements, rights of way, whatever, and probably commit that to a resolution.
I would like to comment. First of all, the code is silent. Our land development regulations are silent with respect to vacation of right-of-ways and easements, unfortunately. Whether there was a long-standing policy or not, the land development regulations have no requirements for these vacations. So inevitably, an ordinance and the policy needs to be put into the land development regulations. I appreciate the utilities coming out. It is, if you go, and I had the opportunity today to look at other codes that have policies and procedures for vacation of right-of-ways, and I just think the ordinance is really slim and really needs to be, there needs to be more to it. In fact, what the application process is, definitions for what abandonment or vacation is. There needs to be more to it because this will be the policy that will be in place. Unfortunately, like I said, the code was always silent, and if I remember correctly, and Mr. Beadle, you've been here for 26 years, there have been instances where roads and easements have been vacated, correct?
Either, my recollection, and I'm not going to say for sure one way or the other, but my recollection is that I know that the city has vacated easements or portions of easements that relate to swimming pool decks and swimming pool enclosures and that type of thing. And that there was a period of time where that was happening on a relatively frequent basis. As far as other vacations of easements, I'm not saying that there have not been, but I don't remember any. It's similar to the one that happened last year. I don't recall a similar event occurring that happened with that one. I'm not saying it didn't, but I just don't recall it.
Cheryl, will you finish it? Or no?
I just would really like to see if we are going to have a policy in place, that it be a very thorough policy that describes the application process and the approval process. With that said, I guess it's a legal question. How do you handle the applications that are already in offer?
It's up to council how they decide they want to do it. It's a policy decision for council. If council wants it to be done based on an ordinance, then that's what it'll be. I mean, because there is no resolution, there is no ordinance, I mean, essentially, you know, council could pass a motion tonight and say that there's a moratorium on consideration of requests for vacations of public rights-of-way until the ordinance is in place. What would happen if we passed a resolution that says we don't? Well, that's another option if that's what you want to do. And what happens to the ones that are in the hopper that Cheryl's referring to? They just go away? They would go away.
I can tell you I don't want a resolution that says you can't, because then you're encompassing every single type of situation. The guy at swimming pool is 3 inches. I'm an example. My house, for some way, was 3 inches off. You know, so, you know, I got it, but I don't think those things are things that are the same as vacating a larger part. So I think a procedure is important on how you go about it. It's nothing to say we're going to vote on it and allow it. It's just the procedure is in place. And I'd rather see a procedure rather than a blanket, no, we're not going to do easements. This is, to me, like the fence ordinance. I hate to say that. Thank you.
Well, I'd look at this, if we're going to proceed with an ordinance, then I'd like more whereases in here, such as one that says something to the effect that whereas it has been a long-standing policy of the city not to give up property, and it is not the intent of this ordinance to make it easy, whereas this ordinance is here to facilitate the unusual vacation of public property. I mean, I'm not looking to pass an ordinance to make it easy for people to come in here and think that they're going to get what they want. You know, if there are unusual circumstances that might occur down the road that facilitate this, that's one thing. But for people to just come in and do exactly what happened last year, that's wrong. It's been our policy. That's why we don't have a place to launch kayaks and canoes in this city, because all of those rights-of-ways were vacated back in the 70s and 80s. And all we're looking at doing is maintaining the public properties that we have in this city so that we don't fall into this situation in the future when something else comes up and we need that property. And I'm not in favor of vacating any more of these things. I was never in favor of vacating them for the 7 years that I was on council. And I know it was a long-standing policy before I came on council. So I understand what you're asking, and I'm not adverse to it, but whatever we come up with, it has to be as strict as it can be, because I'm not in favor of vacating these things.
Again, I'm looking at a procedure.
I'm
not saying you're doing it.
I'm saying we can
We've
have
got to have the procedure in place.
But we need to make sure that we cover our bases legally with whatever we put in the language.
How do we frame that procedure, Jim? I mean, what's the process for doing that?
You adopt it into your land development regulations.
Yeah, I mean, you'd adopt this ordinance, and, I mean, as far as, you know, how you want to frame the ordinance, so to speak, as far as what you will or won't consider, that would be part of what Dominic's alluding to as far as putting on the whereases. That gets to your legislative intent. As far as and I don't know if Frank's concerned about, if there is a resolution passed precluding vacations, I mean, are you concerned just period, or are you concerned because of the vacatings that used to be done with the pools and that kind of stuff? Well, you can create an exception to that. So.
Fine, I just want to make sure that what we do takes that into consideration. So if someone comes here with something so simple that we didn't box ourselves into a corner and have to, change it. It has to work for the whole city.
Well, I mean, from that perspective, I mean, that's covered in this proposed ordinance too. That the process regarding those vacations for like pools, for example, are not included within the terms of this ordinance as it's currently drafted.
Then I would be more in favor of passing a resolution that gives flexibility to the things that Frank is talking about and just say, we're not giving up property, period, unless it's under these circumstances, period.
Yeah, set up the parameters for what will be allowed and not be allowed, rather than setting up some kind of general procedure that encourages people to apply for things that it is city policy that we won't do. So it needs to spell out very clearly, for the most part, don't bother, because the answer will be no, but in these circumstances, this can be considered.
And we know what those circumstances are, because for years we had those things. They came while you were on council, while you were on council, and while you were on council. We've all seen them.
Again, my thing was only, I don't want a blanket one that just locks us in.
Well, I'm looking at Malvern's right now, and it sets up, you have to submit your application, you have to submit a survey, you have to have a legal description, you have to, you have to, the relevant reasons. Anybody can petition, but you have to supply the relevant reasons, and on it goes. So you have to, you have to do these things, and it becomes part of your land development regulations. Right now, the land development regulations are silent. So whether or not it was your policy or not in the past, there was nothing in the land development regulations.
If you pass a resolution that says we're not doing it, we don't need anything in the land development regulations, because the resolution states.
But eventually you still need to,
Well, you're making provisions in the resolutions for the things that he's talking about, where you might have a deck that intrudes into the right-of-way or something like that, and that's basically what we've had over the years. It's those little things, and if you put something in the resolution that exempts those scenarios, then the policy of the city is we're not vacating property unless it's under these circumstances. And then you cite those specific circumstances, and then we don't have to deal with an application. We don't have to deal with people coming in with an application, because the answer would be no. At least from me, from my perspective, while I'm here.
I don't necessarily support that. There could be some unusual circumstances in the city. Perhaps a utility company might come in and want us to vacate a portion of the right-of-way or an easement, and then you're just saying no. So I think there are better ordinances out there, or land development regulations, that take you through the process, and they need to be investigated before you just adopt a resolution saying no.
Let me open up for citizens' comments. Any citizens' comments? John?
John Fergus, 135 Maple. There's a difference between an easement and a right-of-way. The city requires a plat when you develop. It's been all the way back. A right-of-way is on the plat. It is deeded basically to the public. That giveaway last year had been in the public hands since 1925. There should have been no expectation on anybody's part that it would be unavailable. And we already see there's a neighbor that's been inconvenienced, which is a polite term, because a council gave away a piece of a right-of-way. It's one thing to give away a part of an easement in a backyard that's for utilities or something, but even there, it's dangerous. Maybe the easement was intended for electric, and then all of a sudden you find out we need to run stormwater line through or something. These things are there in the public trust And it ought to be, especially when I go back through the whole history of this city, the giveaways of right-of-way have always been for the convenience of the resident. The one at the end of Jackson, the ones at the ends of the other courts, for the convenience, and the one last year, for the convenience of the resident. There was no, repeat, no compelling reason to do it. And now the city is stuck with no access there, with a problem now if you wanted to do some sand renourishment, or 50 years when the beach is back farther, things could get very interesting down there on Beach Street. Do not give away right-of-way and find a compelling reason such as the guy screwed up, the surveyor screwed up, and the pool's in the wrong place, then, but it's on a compelling reason. Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess I'm one of the people that he thinks is here for a freebie.
Your name?
Wayne Lunsford. And
resident of
yes, I'm 1655. I'm at the Magellan side of this. The whole portion of that right-of-way, which can never be built on, is either in the dune or what used to be the dune and now is the beach behind my house. Nobody's going to build on it. Nobody's going to do anything on it. The only real convenience for me in having that is to put it together with my property, which is on the other side, most of which is in the ocean. I've got a couple little wedges. And it would be a convenience to me if I go to sell my property to not have to explain to somebody, well, there's this right-of-way here, but it really doesn't mean anything. And yes, that would be a convenience. All three of the people who own there, after the council unanimously approved the giveaway, as he puts it, of this right-of-way. And by the way, what is a right-of-way? It's something that's taken from the people who have it so that the city can use it, but they didn't use it. Isn't there a restriction that if you don't use something in 50 years, then you lose it? Seems like there's a little bit of legal code on that I've been told about. Doesn't the city put themselves in a position of being sued if they unanimously agree to give it away in one case and then turn around and say, we're not going to return this right away to you in the other cases? Particularly when the case that was given away, as you put it, is the one that actually goes mostly to the backyard, and most of the other three properties, it cuts at an angle. Mine is entirely in the vegetation part of the dune or the beach. My neighbor next to me has a very small slice that cuts through his backyard. Most of the rest of it is in the dune. You're not going to build a road there. It's of no use to the city, and contrary to what the gentleman says here, you're not giving away something that is of great value to anybody except the people that have it in their backyard, and when they go to sell their house, they have to explain what this right-of-way is. I personally think that the city's putting them in a position, particularly after the previous decision. We were put on hold till, well, just wait for a little bit before you file for this, because they're coming up with a plan to make this, go easy. But we're told at the time that it was unanimous that, yeah, we'll consider this for all of you. All you have to do is go get your surveys, get your legal description, which we've all done. So my question is, do you want to put yourself at risk of having a lawsuit over this for nothing? There's nothing there for the city. It's no value. There might be a little bit of tax revenue. I get taxed for the the 2 slices of land that I have out in the ocean. Not a lot, but I pay it. So here's my part.
Roger Good, Satellite Beach resident. Good evening, council. First off, I'm amazed, not shocked, that in October a draft ordinance went out, and it went out to Florida Power, AT&T, yet residents did not even see a draft copy of it, nor was it presented. That is unfair to citizens. Two, fences have nothing to do with easements. In our LDRs, there are fence codes out there. Three, as the previous gentleman pointed out, nothing has been done on those properties, that right-of-way, for many, many years. And this is tax revenue to the city, albeit it may not be much, but it is tax revenue. 4, the way this ordinance is written, there are sections missing in here. For instance, if a resident does grant an easement or a right-of-way on his property to a power company or whoever, and let's say these commercial entities, the city, county, state, whoever decides to vacate this property, this property should revert back to the grantor, may it be the landowner in that area who granted these rights. Not to anybody else, not to the city, not to any other entity, but to the direct grantor of this, whoever the property owner may be. And lastly, I will provide a documentation in regards to this ordinance and some of the issues that I see in it as a resident in Satellite Beach that needs input prior to it being adopted or even going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further?
Hi, Courtney Barker, city resident, Wilson Avenue. I did read the ordinance and I agree that it needs to be beefed up, and I do agree that you need an ordinance. And the reason why is, you know, there is definitely a difference between a right-of-way and an easement, but in either case you need utility reviews, you need an application, you have to have the surveys, otherwise you're doing that work and you're putting the burden on yourself as a city instead of on the applicant. So that whole procedure should be outlined in your land development regulations, and if the city is concerned about vacating right-of-ways for waterfront and oceanfront property, then you just need to put in some criteria and reviewing those, and in what instances would you accept that. I'm not real sure the city should be really worried about legal implications on what you've done differently for each right-of-way. I think you have that right as a council to decide which right-of-ways you want to vacate and which ones you don't. I think citizens need to understand too is that right-of-ways are used for more than just roads. You may have an interest in putting in a beach access, you may need it for a stormwater outfall, many things that you might want to use a right-of-way for. So you may not be using that right-of-way now, but you may need it in the future, and that's something you should look at comprehensively and, you know, through a public hearing process. And then you should have the notice requirements and all of that included. You also need to include your stormwater utility in all of your reviews for any easements and right-of-way vacations, not just the FPL Bright House.
But that's pretty much all I wanted to say, is I think you do need to have an ordinance. You should, and outline very specifically what criteria you would use in a right-of-way vacation, and then an easement vacation, and how you would review those.
Thank you very much. Any, Neil?
Neil Spurlock, I own 1180 North Highway A1A. The county has a really good system of going through and finding properties that maybe aren't used anymore or never ever were used, and depending on what the person coming up asking for that property is, instead of vacating right-of-ways or easements, it's just giving over a piece of property that might be going back on the tax rolls for a purpose, and possibly if it's improved or improvable, then you still haven't given up a right-of-way for any easements whatsoever, but just it's enabled a piece of property to be able to be used. And at a much higher tax than is not being taxed at all right now, plus the city, no, I'm not talking about a beachfront, I'm talking about a piece of property. If you'd like to see one, I happen to have one with me. And I have one for each person if you'd like to see what an example of that might be. Is that something the council would like to see? I wasn't planning on coming this prepared, I just happened to have it, so.
And this is an example of what?
Of a piece of property that could be vacated, having no implication of hurting anybody. These are some different pages that will be part of an application. And it's similar to the applications we make
Thank you.
for the county. I would like the back, by the way. I have to turn these in.
scribble on.
Scribble on all you want, but I get to do. These are pictures. I'll give one so that you guys can see. And now this is what a survey or a description of a piece of property would look like. This piece of property happens to be part of the property that adjoins the property that I purchased. And if you look, 1925, somebody mentioned the golden year. Who knows why in the world they put Sheridan Road up to the back of this piece of property and decided never ever to use it, never ever to be used. It's not like somebody gave up a piece that would go to A1A going right through this property. It just sort of stops. So what I was going to propose is not the vacating of a right-of-way, but we could use it for something that we can develop a piece of property that adjoins it, and it wouldn't hurt the city at all, but it would add, number one, to the tax roll as unimproved property, number two, to the tax roll when it is improved, and number three, you wouldn't have to cut it anymore. It's in the middle of a nowhere. So that's why each property needs to be considered individually. And as to the spirit of the law rather than the letter, if we make a letter that's stamped and this is just the way we're going to go, I think we're shooting ourselves in the foot as a city, as a municipality, as a county, no matter what we do. So that's why people are on the city council, to be able to decide what's best for the city in any particular situation. And we as the taxpayers get to bring it forward. Now, any questions on what that is?
I know what it is.
Okay, I mean, so that's something totally different than maybe what the public would use for a right-of-way to put a kayak in, put a surfboard in, put a whatever in. It's just there. So that's why I think we need to consider what we would do on an individual basis, and not even give up a right-of-way. Because I did start by suggestion of one of the folks in the city calling FPL, AT&T, and these people to vacate a right-of-way, and then I thought about it, and I don't want them to vacate a right-of-way. If they want to use the property, please use the property, because I want Florida Power and Light, I want all those things. But there's reasons why you want to put the property together with another piece of usable property, so that you might use it for beautification as a site plan. You might use it for water retention. There's just different reasons. And it's not bringing the city in any money right now. And for something like this, which I'm sure there's more around because there's a number of them in the county as well, that would be a reason of why maybe to consider being a little more open to vacating property without vacating the right-of-way or an easement.
Teal, thank you. Appreciate your time as 3 minutes, but
Oh,
thanks
all
for
right.
doing it, and we'll definitely pass it on.
It's going to end up in John's office, so if you want to just sort of put them together, and then we'll throw them away from there. Depending on what we do.
I think she's passed it now. Thank you. Any further public comment? Hearing none, bring it back to council.
That particular example right there would be the whereas that I said, this ordinance, whereas this ordinance is here to facilitate the unusual vacation of public property. This would be a prime example of some of the things that we're looking at doing on A1A as far as trying to make some of the parcels of property that are there better parcels of property. Because this parcel of property is just south of where the Kentucky Fried Chicken used to be. And if you look at that, it is, I mean, I agree with you. This is one of those things that we're talking about doing, unusual things on A1A to make some of these non-conforming lots work. If there are more of those in the city, we need to find them if they're adjacent to A1A like that, if we have those scenarios, because I think those are things that are going to make those lots viable. When we look at the setbacks that St. John River Water Management says that we have to look at on these parcels for water retention, we're looking at parking issues on some of these things for the development of these properties. If we have scenarios like this that we could help the property owners, we've talked about that as a council, trying to help property owners along the A1A and making those parcels viable. So this is an example of it. I'm not adverse to the ordinance. I just want to make sure that the ordinance specifically spells out what we want and what we don't want. And I think what you've brought forward is something that I want. I would like to see this because this is what's going to help us on the A1A corridor.
Well, I agree with what Dominic's saying, and I think it would be a mistake to just leave it wide open. Anybody can apply for anything. You then run the risk of the phrase arbitrary and capricious decisions by the government, which is frowned on. And there need to be some parameters. In this realm, we will not consider. However, there will be circumstances, and that's what we should delineate, the type of circumstance in which we would consider vacating an easement or a right-of-way.
And then a procedure.
And then a procedure for doing that.
What I look at is we're nowhere near ready to do anything on this. We need to send it back to staff.
Well, we were just trying to decide from council where you wanted to go with this. That's before we started going in. And I agree that it wasn't any great detail. The main reason for this proposal was just to have a general process to go through because we didn't have one at all before. So, you know, we've talked about, I mean, I know we talked about it when we were on council. Yeah. We've talked about the possibility of closing a few streets that come out onto A1A. Those are right-of-ways. But if you can aggregate those parcels into the existing lots that are adjacent to them, you make those parcels viable parcels. So I think those are things, Jim, that we're looking at the potential to be able to do in the future.
And again, I have Melbourne's in front of me. It's very specific. It has definitions of what, you know, what a right, you know, you understand. And I probably didn't put it out there correctly, but it really does need to be specific. And shame on us for not having this previously in place.
I mean, I've looked at several of the ordinances too, and there are some that are a lot more specific and a lot more detailed and a lot more cumbersome, for lack of a better word to put it, as far as what obligations a property owner would have in order to apply for the vacation.
Okay, the question I have is before, Jim, once you work on this and before it comes back to us, does it need to go to CPAD and other boards along the way before we take a look at it? Or does it come back to us?
I think it would go with planning and zoning.
I think P&Z is where it would go.
Yeah. Okay,
yeah, because it's land development.
Okay.
It's going to deal with
so it would go to them before it comes back to us. Okay. Is that the only?
If it's in the LDRs, it has to go to them.
Yeah. Okay.
The direction. Okay. Consensus.
Yeah, thank you. That's the direction we were looking for. Thank you.
Moving on is number 7. Great. Number 7, discuss, take action on resolution number 924.
Good evening, Mayor, Council.
Good evening.
I'm Clint Braswell. I am the chairman of the Satellite Beach Recreation Department. And I understand that you have a copy of the proposed ordinance as well as a summary. Is that correct? Okay. So what I'd like to do then is walk through this summary with you, but we may reference the actual document itself. Now, our purpose really when we looked at this was we kind of looked at three things. One thing, we wanted to simplify it. There were a lot of multiple categories and multiple price tierings and things like that. It was a little administratively a little difficult. We obviously wanted to remain competitive and comparable to other facilities in the communities surrounding us, and also try to increase the revenue where we can, but still remain, competitive. Okay? So if we can, just go through page 2 and 3. Section 3 is the first section where we made a change. Okay? And this change has to do with the Civic Center. For nonprofit organizations, we were proposing to have only 2 categories. There were previously 4 categories based on the number of residents that were in a particular group. Really, most groups fell into 2 categories, so we're simplifying it down to 2 categories. One is if you have at least 15 Satellite Beach resident members, and the other if you have less than 15. And we're proposing to raise the fees for the auditorium from $6 an hour to $13 an hour. I'm sorry, $6 an hour to $15 an hour. And then
$13.50.
Yeah, $13.50 to $20 an hour. I'm sorry. The other one is for, wait a minute, how's this? Let's see.
Actually, the $6 one is going to go to $15.
That's right. Yeah, $6 an hour to $15, $13.50. Yeah, the category that would normally pay $6 is going to go to $15. The category B, which is the higher category, would go from $13.50 to $20 an hour. Now we realize, we did that because that's still a very competitive rate for what you're getting here with these 2 facilities, especially since they've been, revamped and so forth. We did propose something that you see in red, though, because we did feel that there might be, a little backlash and maybe some groups vacating the existing groups, for such a large jump. So we're proposing that we tier that over the next 3 years, to where the first year it just goes to $10 for Group A, and then to $12.50 in the second year and $15 in the third year. Okay. And then for Group B would be, $15 to $17.50 and then up to $20. But any new group coming in would pay the new rate. Okay? And then the Oleander room would go from $5 an hour and $8.50 an hour for the 2 groups to $7 an hour and $10 an hour. So from $5 to $7 an hour and from $8.50 an hour to $10 an hour for the 2 groups. Okay. Now that's for nonprofit organizations. Civic Center used by private and business promotional enterprises. The auditorium currently is $18 an hour, and the Oleander is $8.50 an hour. We propose raising it to $25 an hour for the auditorium and $10 an hour for the Oleander room. Any questions on that? Okay. Page 3, Section 4. The beach house, Pelican Beach House, just a slight increase there. Basically, from $230 for Friday evening to $250, and on weekend days, Saturday and Sunday, you go from $340 a day to $350 a day. So just a slight bump there. Okay, the next item is on page 5, section 11. And this is for one-time users. This isn't for the leagues and things like that, but for one-time users, we're proposing, currently it's $12 an hour for daytime, $24 an hour for evening. We propose bumping that up considerably, actually, to $24 an hour for daylight and $35 basically when they have the lights on. Okay. All right.
Mr. Braswell, may I
Yes.
just ask a question?
Sure.
What did you look at to come up what did you compare, other facilities or what, in order to come up with what would be a reasonable increase in fees for us?
Right, yeah, that's one of the main things we looked at, was the other facilities in the county. Not only what their fees were, but the quality. You know, when we look at the ball fields, you know, we can't compare to like the Vieira ball fields and things like that, but we do compare favorably and better to some of the other communities. So we took that into consideration, trying to kind of come up with a balance. We don't have a lot of one-time users, so the fees there, we really feel, in talking to some coaches and some people, that they don't really like it, but they would be okay with that fee.
Because that was a big increase.
Yes.
On this one.
Right.
In arriving at the numbers, the recommendations that you're proposing, do you find that these are competitive with other facilities throughout the county?
Yes, very much so, right. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. So the tennis courts. The main thing, one of the changes we're making is we're just proposing a resident and a non-resident fee. There used to be a resident day, a resident night, and then a non-resident day and a non-resident night. Really don't see the need to differentiate. The lights aren't quite an issue like they are with the ball fields. There's a significant difference because the cost of operating the lights at the ball fields, but the tennis courts is really not an issue because we can light just one court at a time, or two courts, I think it is. Okay? So we're deleting the junior day rate. It was a rate that very few people would actually take advantage of. So currently we have a residential day rate of $1.50 and a night rate of $1.75. We're just proposing one resident fee of $2.25 per person. And then the non-resident, there was a non-resident day and a non-resident night, and we're just proposing one non-resident fee at $3.25 per day, per person per day. Little increase in cost, but not a lot.
Would you be kind enough to back up and go over the ball field use in Part 2, 7, Section 7, 8, 9, and 10, and 11?
In the actual resolution itself?
Yes.
Okay. 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And we didn't make any changes in this. So let me glance through it real quick. Did you have any specific questions, or?
No, I would like just for you to go over each section and the difference.
When you say the difference?
Did the fees increase for use of field?
Right, but section 7 through 10 didn't have any changes.
Nothing changed on those.
Okay.
Right. Is that okay?
Yeah, let me just catch up on that.
Sure.
Go ahead, you can keep going.
Okay. All right, so if we go to section 13, membership, we're proposing to eliminate two of the membership levels. That is the resident couple and the non-resident couple. We just didn't have any people using that. We felt we could do just as well with having a resident individual and resident family, and then a non-resident individual and a non-resident family. Okay, and we're proposing a change. The semi-annual rate, well, one thing which we're proposing is, before there used to be kind of a break when you bought the annual, but we find that most people they buy the semi-annual, or they're going to buy an annual one way or the other, okay? So rather than, raising a semi-annual, I think we just decided it's best, it's just going to be double. If you want to buy an annual membership out of convenience, you can buy an annual membership. It's really just out of convenience. We didn't see the need to discount it. Okay? So no change on the resident individual, but we are changing the annual to be double what the semi-annual is. Okay? Like I said, get rid of the resident couple. Resident family, same thing. No change on the semi-annual, but changing the annual to twice what the semi-annual was. And then we did bump up the non-resident just a little, 95 to 100. And then doubled it. Semi-annual from 175. We actually went down on that to 150 to 300, just to kind of be in line with the other rates. Any questions on that? Okay. One thing we're proposing, currently the Satellite High School tennis team uses the courts at no charge. We're proposing, under consideration to request the team members to purchase a membership. The use of the facility, tying up the facility when we could lease it out. I know there's an issue of, supporting the schools and things like that, so.
So there'd be a membership for the team, not for each member of the team?
For each team member, yes. For each member, right.
Every individual team member would have to have a membership?
Right, exactly. So they would pay $50 to use for the semi-annual, unless they're doing it all year.
And what would they be charged?
If it was, I can't remember if the students have to, if they use it all year or just half a year. I'm not real sure what the season is.
I think Kerry had mentioned at the meeting, they only use it part of the year, so
That's
we're
what I
probably
thought.
looking at a $50.
Or $95 if you're saying that they're not in the city, correct?
Right.
Well, if they're members of the school, I think.
Well,
Well, but I'm saying that's not what,
this.
what I'm saying, that's not what this says here. It says $50 for a residential individual, and then non-resident individual is $95. So we can say they're at Satellite, which is great, but either they're a resident or they're not a resident, I think.
Well, you can.
We've always,
You can
my
change
feeling,
this.
but my feeling is this. We've supported, the schools have supported us, we've supported the schools. And, we've used their ball fields, they've used ours, and we've had a good relationship there. And I'm a little worried about that fee for those kids, because if you don't think that sports is pay for play at the high school level, it's absolutely pay for play now.
Yeah.
I mean, I know baseball real well. They give them $3,000 a year. Baseballs are $60 a dozen, bats are $400. And that doesn't even cover the umpires, the $3,000 for the games. It doesn't. So the parents and the kids are out on the streets, they're probably around now trying to sell cards and so forth. So my only thing is, yeah, they take a little bit of our time, but it's part of our community.
Right.
And that's just my feeling on that. But anyway, sorry to interrupt you.
No, a little on the fence on that one myself, to be honest with you, Mayor.
Yeah, it seems a bit steep to me.
They're paying for, if you want, it's interesting because the school board, if you listen to them, they are in a financial tough time. And if we're helping that sport, we're helping those kids, keeping them off the streets after school. And it's a good program. And I know they let us use football fields and stuff of that nature. But,
Do they play at night or do they play during the day?
I'm not real sure. I'm guessing they practice in the afternoons, but I don't know. Carrie would know that. She's
I'd just like to at least look at that. Maybe it's not quite as steep.
Okay.
If we're going to charge them anything at all, or do it as a team. But to me, we've always worked with the schools on issues like that, and I don't believe ever have charged them.
Okay.
I don't have a problem either way with that.
I think it needs to be looked into a little bit further.
So we can look at this resolution, pass it on first reading, and they can come back
Sure,
in second reading.
So it's one reading.
It's only one reading.
On a resolution.
Okay.
Just
so. Okay, the racquetball courts. Proposed to change some of the hourly rates, break out resident, non-resident day and evening like we did before. So we're proposing just a resident day of $160, resident night of $225, non-resident day of $2, non-resident night of $3. Basically, we're combining into one resident fee and one non-resident fee. That was a very little change. We don't have a lot of people using racquetball courts, but there are some. There's some, dedicated people that use it. So, skate park. Currently, skate lessons cost Case sessions cost $3.50. We're actually proposing to lower this. Premise there really is that it's an underused facility, and we'd really like to encourage the kids to come out and use that facility. I realize that lowering the price probably isn't going to do it on its own, so we propose to do some other things, as far as promoting it. Free skate days, we're going to do a little thing that when the Little League does their big event at DeSoto, some things like that, to kind of promote it a little bit. But we're proposing to lower we'd rather have more skaters out there using the facility.
One thing on that, I look at it and I think lowering is great because I have talked to some families on the skate park, and I'm not sure, it's been a while since we built that, but what the fees were when we first built it. There was quite a lot of participants in it. And I understand it cycles, but and I look at this, and it doesn't look as bad when you break it down into, $25 for 20 skates.
Right.
But when you look at a family annual membership at $300, I gotta think that is a luxury for more people because it's not a mainstream sport. And if they're playing other things like football and, soccer and baseball, to say, oh, I'm going to join for $300 to use it more, I don't think they're going to join because $300 is a lot to put out for a sport. So anyway, I would like to see it so that it's reasonable price for us to cover ourselves there, yet make it so that the reason the skateboard park was built is because they were skating all over, and obviously there was, we had a need for it. Kids enjoy doing that.
Yeah.
So as if we get the prices too high, we're going to lose that kid. He's going to go back on the street, right? Skateboard right out here or wherever. So I'd like to see things a little more reasonable to cover the facility so we can keep it open, yet not scare the kids away because it's too pricey.
And also with respect to the skate park, I actually took a bunch of boys from Satellite to Cocoa Beach Skate Park on Saturday, and it was packed. It's a lot cheaper there. It's managed. It has air conditioning, restrooms. So that's another thing we look at maybe in the future is doing more out there and hosting special events and contests and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. That's something we talked about. Some kind of special events.
Yeah, that was the stuff that was discussed. Kerry brought to the board's attention that, there's skate parks around all over now. There was only one when we did ours. So we had, we were the only game in town at that point in time. And ours is an older facility. And I think we have to look at the fact that, a lot of these recommendations are coming based on, discussion in the past of, the rec board looking at their fees. So, I look at some, the thing for the high school, I think we should, look at some different things there, and I think the family fee for this probably should be looked at, but I think that the rec board's direction was to look at increasing the revenue.
And that's obviously KPAC. I understand there's certain things that with children and kids and keeping them active, the city's mindset, if the mindset's changing, that's okay, but the ball fields were always open, they were always there for kids to play. Now we have the Schechter Center with the gym and so forth. I'm just a feeling that I'd rather play it to the side of safety to get that kid involved in some sport, get them into, the skate park, if skating's their thing, and not with a kid have to deal with him not being able to use it because it costs too much. And I understand with KPAC, I read it, and they get some great things in there. But the city, part of its foundation of the city was always great recreation for kids. There was a sign in Percy Hedgecock's office, many of you have seen, it says, take the brick, put a ball in a kid's hand, take the brick out. So, I understand we've got to pay and we've got to make fees logical. But I also know what the city stood for in its early days, and I want to just make sure we're not pricing it so these kids can't afford to play these sports anymore. Therefore, they're going to be on the streets and, have nothing to do. And we've always kind of had that mentality before in the city that, we can make it up somewhere, but the kids were kind of had something to do. So.
And I agree with you, and I was thinking, I need the antacids here when I saw some of these fees, because it trickles down basically to the folks whose children are in these things. Even the user fees, I think everybody knows I had heartburn with the use of the ball fields last year, because ultimately that gets tacked onto the parents' fee to play that sport, and it's difficult out there. You know, health benefits are going up. Your paycheck's getting smaller, but the fees, and parents have to choose now between, okay, you can only play one sport a year instead of playing 2 or 3. And it's really, really difficult, because it does eventually trickle down to the folks with children who are really, really struggling out there. And I know a lot of the leagues give out scholarships every year, and they never recoup that money. And fundraising is also tough. It's not easy. You notice the sponsorship is down, fundraising is down. It's just the way it is out there right now. So it's just a difficult situation all around.
Well, I mean, I agree with you. From a recreation board's perspective, we don't want to raise the fees, okay? But we feel it's part of our obligation to stay competitive with what else is out there and try to generate enough money where the city can survive, okay? I guess that's where feedback from council comes, is that, you know, we don't want to go against what you're saying. You know, we want the kids to be able to use facilities and not have to pay a lot of money for them. But, you know, the reality is it costs money. And we have budget issues too. I mean, you guys deal with that daily, so.
No, I understand.
I hear what you're saying, and I agree with it, you know. So. Okay, Pelican Beach Park. Oh, we're just proposing to delete these fees for nonprofits on the pavilions. And I think that the thought behind that was really is that, you know, everybody that goes to rent a pavilion, you know, they say that, you know, my brother's a member of such and such, and it gets confusing. So we think everything would be fine. Just, you know, everybody pays a flat rate for the pavilions. Soccer fields. Again, here, something, you know, obviously up for discussion. To request the soccer team to pay $3 per player for the season.
How much does the high school team actually use city soccer fields? I mean, as I recall, most of it was up there on the football field and the fields around it. There really wasn't any use of satellite fields. Per se, or was just
you know,
soccer? Do we
I don't. That's something I'd defer to Carrie.
Okay.
Carrie would know that a lot better than me. Yeah.
Kerry was actually the one that proposed this fee. I remember when we were sitting there talking, you know, at the rec board meeting, Kerry was the one that, you know, brought some of these to the table, so I'm not sure why.
Right, I understand, and I'm going to play devil's advocate here just for a second. If you look and say, request for satellite soccer team to pay $3 a player, then you're going to go back 4 pages and tell me you're going to charge $95 or $50 to use the tennis courts. I mean, right, I mean, the same satellite kids, one using a facility and one using another, who's paying, you know, 20 times the cost. So, okay, anyway.
That's a good point. No, point taken.
Well, I think probably the difference between the two might be buried in the light costs too. That might be the difference between the two.
Yeah. If they're using them at night.
Exactly.
Yeah, and the upkeep on the soccer fields, I don't think would be as high as on the tennis courts. The nets are repaved.
I'll tell you, when our kids were doing comp soccer, those fields got eaten up pretty bad. The soccer team running from 8 o'clock in the morning till 4 in the afternoon chews up those fields. It takes a full week for those things to recover, and by the end of the season, you got brown spots just all over the place. So.
Well, we know Public Works does a great job.
They do a great job. I mean, when you've got games going all day long, it just wears us out. Yeah.
And I think a lot of this too, when Carrie was bringing this up, I mean, she does work with Public Works and knows what the upkeep of these fields are.
Right.
So, you know, that's probably
It's got to be figured
some of
into
the
it.
rationale behind the $3 per player.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, page 8, section 24, the gymnasium, just proposing a slight bump, $1.25 or $1.50 per person for the gymnasium, for the gym. And the last modification on page 9, section 26, is the game room, at the Schechter Center. Currently, there's no charge for daily use. It's still the same for the game room itself, and this is where we may need to Carrie and I worked on this at the last minute. Day to day, there is no charge for using the game room, but during the summer, we want to be able to charge, $30 per child for the summer programs, okay, or $1.25 per child per day if the child comes to the program for just 1 or 2 days. And we've done that. That's what we've done in the past. I think it was $30 last year. I can't remember. It just wasn't in the resolution.
And that's something, I think there was going to be a little more structure to it too, as far as the activities
Right.
that she was planning.
Yeah,
So
she's going to put
that's
together
the
a
reason-
specific program.
Right, that's the reason for the fee.
Different activities, and those activities will cost a little money to put together.
Thank you very
Any
much.
questions? Thank you.
Council, I'll open up for citizens' comments.
Steve Osmer, Satellite Beach. I have a couple questions, and it makes me always wonder about this. I'll tell you where I'm coming from. As you'll remember, there used to be a thing about the fire fees. We all pay taxes for our fire department, and there was a few cities and stuff that also wanted to charge you as a resident every time the fire department responded. And I kind of look at this the same way as, is my tax money going to pay for these ball fields now? And yet you want me to pay fees on top of using the ball fields. So is that going to reduce my taxes, or are we trying to make the rec center and some of these things self-sufficient, or have they just become more expensive so we're just charging everybody more for them? And I understand the thing about the kids, and I think that's a great idea, and I get that. My kids the same way. It seems like every time I turn around, my kids are raising money for something. And as we all know, the kids aren't paying for anything. The parents are paying for all this. The parents are paying for all these fees for this. And I love the recreation, and I think it's a great thing. But like you said, if you got to get to the point where you got to pick and choose what your kid can afford to do and what he can't afford to do, then we are pushing them back out on the street. So some of the things we should be considering is maybe students should be using some of these things for free. And let the adults who want to play racquetball, let adults who want to play tennis, and let the adults do the stuff who are actually working and making money, maybe let them propose fees. But say if you're a student in this community, then you wouldn't have to pay to go to for skateboards, or you wouldn't be using, like I said, Satellite High. I mean, that's another one I look at is I'm paying taxes for the ball field, and I'm paying taxes for the tennis courts, and I'm paying taxes to the school board for my kids to go to school and everything, and now you want me to pay a fee for my kid to use those things that I'm paying taxes on twice already. And again, lean times. I mean, I'm not as bad off as some people, but, my paycheck also, nothing changed in my life except taxes went up, and I'm bringing home $12 every payday now less than I did last year. I didn't do anything different. I didn't make no tax difference changes, no nothing else, but I'm making less money, like a lot of Americans are right now, is making a lot of less money. And at this time, and I get this, but, when everybody's making less money, everybody has less resources, and we're trying to do better things for the community, I'm not so sure proposing increases is going the right direction. As the economy goes, you see this right now, our biggest problem in Congress is they want to raise taxes, and you can see the problems we're having with that right now. People are saying now is not the time to do this. When we're making more money and the economy's better, then I can see where we can help out. But with schools cutting back, taxes going up, people making less money, maybe we should find some compromise. Like I said, the idea is we're trying to keep kids off the street and keep them going things, then Maybe the middle road is, let's have students not have to pay fees to use these things here, and like I said, maybe charge the adults. Let them pay for those fees that are out there. Because ultimately, we're paying the fees anyways. Whether your kids are going or whether I'm going, whether I'm playing tennis or racquetball or whether my kid's playing tennis or racquetball, I'm still paying the fee. So, and actually, it kind of helps everybody out.
Thank you. Ron?
Roger Goodis, resident, Satellite Beach. I remember the days when tennis courts were free, racquetball courts were free, swimming pools were a minor fee. I'm sure we could all relate to that. And as we had kids, there were certain fees that came up, and we now live in a different time where we have all kinds of constraints. Is it the fault of not charging for fees in the past that has put us in this position? It doesn't matter right now. What is most important is to have these kids occupied and the police department less occupied when they are engaged in these activities. It is very critical to have the kids participate. I commend the board's valiant effort to look at the fee structure. I was a participant on KPEG, and this was one thing that was addressed and looked at by several members, but it takes time to develop these rates. You can't rush into them, and I know the board spent some time on this, but we're only looking at the revenues right now, and we're considering the social ramifications, but we don't have the full picture in front of council to move this ordinance forward. There's an item called proof of revenue to determine how much revenue is going to come in. There's a marketing aspect to know whether you're going to lose people from attending these programs and burdening the citizens and their families. I think there should be a little more work to look at the expenditure side prior to just passing this rate increase ordinance. Thank you.
Ron, I have a question to ask you since you're there and you were on KPEG. What was the mindset in KPEG looking at the rec center? Did you guys view government as a business or a service to provide to the kids and so forth? Because I think that's really the basis you got to get to.
KPEG was, let me explain something. KPEG was put together by, KPEG was individuals that brought ideas forward. Some were of the mindset for a business, others were not for a mindset of business, but it was a combination of ideas there. I don't think you can go to the extreme of making it a business. It's not possible.
Again, my thing was just whether it was taken from, we're running it as a business with blindfolds on, and if it doesn't become profitable or pay for itself, it goes away. So I'm just trying to get the feel of.
You have to.
Here's my and thank you for those questions. And really, my question now is to the rec board. The question would be, did you undertake this survey and do the price increases because of recommendations from KPEG, or it's something that you were doing all along with Kerry just to do to make it more affordable? I'm just trying to find out the mindset of.
The mindset of the board really is coming from Kerry relaying to us that council wants, the budget's really tight, and we either need to cut back on some services that the recreation department is offering, or we need to bring in more money. Okay, one of those two had to happen. Okay, you know, in our capacity, really the only thing we can do is, the best thing we can do is to go through and see if we can't raise the rates, keeping them comparable with what someone's going to pay if they live in Harbor Beach or in Melbourne or something like that. So that was kind of our thought process.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ron. Any further public comment?
We are talking about the actual resolution, correct?
Yes, resolution,
I just
920.
want to make sure that we're talking about,
yep, 924, the fees.
okay. Steve Headley, I'm a resident, somewhere over on the avenue. I call your attention to a couple things. Section 29, actually part 12, section 29. The public school approved activities which have reserved the Civic Center any day have reserved the Pelican Pavilions on a weekday, Monday through Friday, get an automatic waiver. I'm curious why, if we are waiving the fees for a school or educational purpose, we don't waive it for a private school as well. They pay the same taxes, the same abilities, and I think that needs to be looked at. But that's not my biggest issue. Please scoot on down to section 33. Permission to use the facilities for denominational and non-denominational religious services or for quote-unquote Sunday school will be denied. The church-affiliated groups may reserve facilities for social or recreation purposes. This is unconstitutional. 1995 decision of Lamb's Chapel said that if you're going to open up city facilities, public-owned facilities for a group, you cannot discriminate on their content. You cannot tell them what they can and cannot say. And that's what you're doing here. The government has the responsibility to neither promote nor impede a religious activity. And by saying that you're going to allow one group to rent it, but based upon the religion of another group, you're denying them that. You can't do it. And I kid you not, I checked this out with 2 different law groups today. This is a no-brainer. There's even back up in section 29, other exemptions to the fee schedule may be granted by the city manager for civic educational activities which are not religious, political, or commercially oriented. That's prior restraint to public speech. You can't do it. You just can't. Now, I normally don't stand up here and I try to be as lighthearted as possible, but I guarantee you that this one I won't let rest. Okay? I was going to bring the decision for you from the Supreme Court. It's well available. It's standard. It's accepted. You're violating the law by making those provisions based upon someone's content of speech to rent the rooms and rent facilities. And there's no way around it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Steve. Any further citizens' comments? Hearing none, bring it down back to council. I didn't see you there, sir. I am sorry.
I can invite.
Appreciate it.
David Schechter, citizen. Just one little item I want to work on, that's working with the schools. We have cooperated with them year after year after year, going back a long time, and I really would, without charging fees. So I really would like you to consider that part of the ordinance for the schools, because we really have worked with them over the years. They worked with us, we worked with them. There were times when they couldn't play if they hadn't had a facility here. There were times we couldn't do it if we didn't use their facilities. So they've been cooperative, so I'd like to see you consider not charging them for that.
Thank you. Okay. Any further public? If I didn't miss anybody? Hearing none, bring it back to council. Council?
I think before we can decide whether or not these fees are reasonable, I think we have to ascertain what is the purpose, what is the goal of charging these fees? Is it to recover X percent of the cost? And if so, what is that percent? And do these fees meet that number? Right now, I feel, and I do appreciate the work that the rec board did on this, but I feel like I'm being asked to put a price on something and I don't know how I should be valuing it. So, and that's a council policy on fees. What what do we want these fees to achieve?
I agree. I mean, that's part of the reason why I asked the question, where the mindset was it a business or where the playing field's at, so. Brenda, you finished? Do you have more?
Yeah.
Okay.
Lynn, I want to thank you for your time. A couple years ago, I attended quite a few rec board meetings, and I know they really put a lot of thought into the usage of the fields, and this one uses lights, and this, the maintenance, and that soccer runs all day and things like that. But I agree, we really need to doing a better evaluation. And also, a couple years ago, we also put the $1 fee on a processing fee at the rec center. So I think we really need to take a look at the value and what we're really trying to achieve, because it does all trickle down to the children.
And maybe it's part when we do budget and the level of service workshops, we can better see where we're at and then apply these fees at that time if we find we need that revenue or it doesn't meet whatever % we want to support, the rec department with tax laws.
I mean, I said it before, I'm going to say it again. I think the rec board was given direction by the past council to look at these things. And I think the information that I heard passed around at the meeting when I was at the rec board meeting was their direction was, we got to do something because that council was looking at more money and more revenue out of the rec department. And that's basically what we were looking at. So, you came up and you guys did a lot of work. I mean, I know I said at that meeting, we were there for 2 hours that night while y'all were going over all this stuff. So, I mean, I agree with Lorraine. There are some things here that I'm not comfortable with, and the things that Steve brought up. I mean, were these in the schedule? I mean, were these part of the resolution before, these exemptions? If they were, I think we need to have
Jim look at them.
And find out, if these are going to be a problem for us in there, because even if we don't accept this resolution and we don't accept these fees, if these statements are in the past resolution or if they're somewhere that they're going to be a problem for us, we need to at least be able to address them.
Lorraine, just one question. So you're trying to, because I'm going to base my comment based on how you answer this. There's a philosophical issue on charging these fees. Is that what you're?
A policy issue.
To clarify that.
Well, what do we want our recreation program to do? What do we want recreation fees to achieve? Do we want to say that the fee should be set so that they cover, and this is just an example, should they be set to cover 25% of all costs in the department? Or is there another reason for setting the fees? And I understand that, these are challenging economic times and we have to make adjustments and all. I also sympathize with, the parents' comments about, fees going up. I'm concerned about the fees for students. So what purpose do these fees serve? What goal? What objective?
All right, let me step back. In 75 through 77, we had a men's softball league that played out here every night. It was made up of residents and non-residents. We'd play 3 or 4 times a week out there. And I happened to be the captain of that particular team, and we had to pay $100 to be in that league. I said, Terry, what's that $100 go to? She goes, it just goes to just really covering the lights. Other than that, we drag the fields and all that sort of thing. Back when we were doing all the AAU stuff, there was a fee for that as well. And the fee was, again, for covering, just making sure the field was dragged, lined, everything was put together the way it could be so we could come out and not have parents have to do all of that. So the philosophy was it pretty much covered the expenses for the gasoline, the lights, just getting it so you, the resident, could come out and just play ball. And that was what we did. I never, all the time I grew up and when we did AAU and all that stuff, I was never, I'd show up and everything was ready to go. We didn't have to do much. And that's kind of what I thought we got out of that, is it was a fair system. It was really, the rec department wasn't trying to make money off of it. They were just trying to cover the expenses of more than the lights than anything else. So that's just philosophically where I have come from 75 forward. So.
And so then the question is, do these numbers meet such an objective? I don't know.
Yeah.
So, because I just have to understand, today, we line the fields. When you went out there, the fields were lined in the 70s, because we're lining the football field, we're lining the...
Oftentimes, if they had the leftover chalk from Little League, they would occasionally line, I'm sure.
Oh, with the parents
This is
line
long,
them.
no, this
I'm
is
just-
35 years
okay.
ago.
I think that...
I'm way back there, I'm still back there. But,
I'm just, from a philosophical standpoint, this is how I feel. A lot of us move here because of the services. That's why the schools and the services, and I think it's the foundation of our community. I don't think we should, I don't care if it makes a profit. I really don't. It's right.
Again, that's where the
So I would rather
philosophy
keep the fees lower and provide those.
Here's the other part of the philosophical part of that, is at 10 o'clock when we turned off the lights and we went home, we'd pick up the trash, but we left the field. And the city came in the next day and restored it to its original level so that the next group could come out. So that's how I saw those fees being utilized, is you're ready to play ball, here's how to do it.
So
It's always been that way.
Yeah.
And it's always been reasonable. I mean, it'd be nice if we had nice fields and nice tennis courts and nobody used them because the fees are too high. So, we have these things. I'd rather see people out there using them and keep it reasonable.
So what I see here is no action on this agenda item, so it dies, and bring it back during budget workshops and so forth and see where we're at.
I think that would be a more appropriate time, and, I don't want you and your board to go away thinking that your time was wasted. It was not. But maybe when we are looking at the whole budget picture, that would be a more germane time to consider whether or not these fees are appropriate.
Well, here's my question. If they're going to bring it back at budget time, what are they going to bring back?
Well,
they've done their work. Where does this group go from here? Because they put a lot of time into this.
Lorraine, the thing that Lorraine brought up was, what is it comparable to? I mean, so maybe between now and budget time, we can look at, you can look at those numbers to figure out what it's comparable to. I mean, you were looking at different percentages, or what are we trying to attain? And maybe that's what Kerry needs to come back with it, budget time, and say, okay, here's where we are. This is what we think we're going to need, and here's how we think we may be able to get there. And,
Great, but I think it's also, we need to give them direction. We got to give them the philosophy that we want them to use for, again, all the departments, and how you're going to come up with the budget. How are you going to justify the rec? Is the rec looked at different than the fire or the police? So I think that's part of our doing also, is to help the rec board. But I think it's a level of service, and when we discuss the budget. So, I think we...
The is entirely different. It really is. It's not like any of the other departments. So you guys, and Kerry, when you guys look at this stuff, you're looking at it differently than the police department is or the fire department is. It is a different animal. So...
Okay, hearing no action. An action that dies. I'm going to take a 10-minute break. 10 minutes tonight.
It is not.
Okay, we're moving on. Agenda item number 9, discuss, take action on expenditure from Law Enforcement Trust Fund for X26P taser equipment.
Yes, sir. I'd like to call on the Acting Police Chief, Brad Hodge, to give this presentation. Perfect.
I think my memo pretty much explained the taser situation, and it's pretty straightforward. We've gotten our initial taser purchase was back in 2005 when they first came on to market. We purchased one for every officer. Since then, there's been some new technology. We have several broken tasers. We have an excellent opportunity to trade those in under a program that's only good till the end of March and get some money towards some of the new technology. And so that's what we'd like to do, to get some reliable, newer technology equipment.
And as you can see on the memo, this is an approved expenditure by state statute.
Great, thank you. Counsel? comments?
I'll make a motion that we approve expenditure of funds in the amount of 5381.95 from the Law Enforcement Trust Fund for X-26 Taser equipment.
Second.
Have a motion by Vice Mayor Breimer, second by Councilman Montanaro. Any further council discussion? And then open up for public comment. Any public comment? Steve?
Steve Hadley, still a resident. Just because I'm a curious little critter at times, I noticed in the invoice that's in the packet, and I'm sorry, I will need to address you. We're ordering brand new holsters as well? I'm sorry? Are we ordering brand new holsters as well? Correct. Yeah.
The X-26 tasers, the original model taser, was about the size of a regular Glock firearm. The new tasers, mine is my tactical vest in the car, so I can't show it to you, is about
I'm glad of that, actually.
it's about a quarter of the size, and it doesn't fit in the old holster, so it's a whole new model holster and taser.
Okay, that was.
Oh, planned obsolescence, Steve.
Look, I can't find anything that says the taser should have died within less than 15 years, but hey, what do I know? So.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Hearing none, bring it back to council. Brett, this money is from the trust fund, correct?
Yes, sir.
The funds that you've accumulated from...
The trust fund is actually, the balance is approximately $48,000 now. We've had 4 or 5 excellent years of asset seizure and forfeiture, basically resulting in our officers stopping vehicles and seizing money or cars as a result of those things being used in the commission of a felony. They've gone through the court systems. We've had money awarded back to us, and that's placed in law enforcement trust fund pretty much for these exact type of expenditures.
Okay, great. Thank you for explaining that. Council, any further? Okay. Hearing none, Lenore, poll, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Thank you very, very much. Good job. Moving on to agenda item number 10, update from building official John Stone on the Capital Outlay Committee meeting.
Excuse me? Looking for you to take it. Oh. Good evening, everyone. All right. On the January 30th Capital Outlay Committee, we were tasked by the school facilities department to make a recommendations in regards to school concurrency as it related to the closing of the schools, whether or not if those schools closed, there would be adequate concurrency. It was a tough one to struggle with because for a couple of reasons. One, there was just a lot of data being thrown out there. But more importantly, the Florida statutes had changed a couple of years back. It was lobbied by the Home Builders and Contractors Association. It basically said that concurrency could be met with portables. So capacity was easily overcome simply by throwing portables at it, now that it can be used for concurrency. Again, we were tasked to make a recommendation strictly based on those numbers on whether or not it met capacity. That was their perception. The committee, we felt that we had more of a duty than to just strictly look at the data as it related to capacity. I'll paraphrase the first recital of the interlocal agreement, which really addresses the point that this committee had brought forward. Now is, whereas the county, cities, and the school board recognize their mutual obligation and responsibility for the education, nurturing, and general well-being of the children within their community. This is in the interlocal agreement, so we as a committee felt that there was more to this than simply looking at the data. The first motion that was made by the Assistant Facilities Director, asking us to make this motion. That motion failed to agree that there was concurrency. So the committee had made a motion, that motion being that the schools be removed from
the budget cuts, the $30 million deficit. That motion failed as well. So we were basically at opposite ends on how to get a motion forward to the school board. Ultimately, we'll call it a compromise, but ultimately where that motion went, 10-2, was to table the school board closings for 1 year. This would allow for time to look at this fairly large amount of data to hopefully get this back on the ballot next year for the sales tax again, but this time better educate the public on the dire need for this sales tax. Because basically that sales tax would have brought in approximately $32 million. There was actually budget cuts representing $38 million that the school board was looking at. Now they've only looked at the first $30 million, but there's still another $8 million there. To put in perspective, the closing of schools only represents about $3.2 million. To even be more specific, C-Park only represents $782,000. Now, again, we're only looking at the $30 million. There's another $8 million there of cuts that really weren't even on the table, even though they were recommended cuts by the superintendent. So there's other opportunities out there. Between that meeting and the following meeting the next day with the elected officials, it was pretty apparent that there are options out there. It's whether or not that they're willing to take them. I think there was a lot of opposition, well, let's say a lot of support on not closing those schools and allowing this time to do some better education to the public, as well as look at these other opportunities for savings, as well as revenue. Let's see here. That's pretty much the nutshell of it. You know, January 12th is obviously going to be the day that we're all going to know. Right now, it's hard to say where it's going to go. One interesting point was one of the questions that was asked of I think one of the elected officials.
February 12th.
Excuse me?
February 12th.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, February 12th. Yeah, one of the questions that was asked at the January 31st meeting with the elected officials and Commissioner Nelson and Fisher was if the sales tax referendum went back on the ballot next year. Now, this is assuming that they closed the schools down and they, the kids went to Holland and they went up to Cocoa Beach and everywhere else. We lost those neighborhood schools at that point. The schools closed. They put it back on the ballot to try to raise that money again. Would they reopen the schools? And the answer was no. At that point, it may be 2 or 3 years they would consider it, but know that if they were to get that tax increase, that would not open up the schools, because at that point it would not be efficient. They've already divided the children up and they've met their capacity, which is approximately 90%, and there would be no reason to reopen it at that point. Now, the way they met that capacity is by throwing portables at it. It's never been the philosophy of the schools that I was raised in around here, and I went to every one of these elementary schools. Portables were just not something that was desired, and I think a lot of parents support that. So that's where we are, is we're going to know February 12th on whether or not they're going to keep those schools open.
What's your bet?
I would hate to make a bet, but I'm going to give you a personal opinion. I think that they will stay open, that they will see the support by the county, by the COC, the large amounts of people that have been coming out, and we got two. There's a swing vote out there that we need to convince.
Okay. Thank you. Any further comment, John? Okay. Let me open up for citizens' comments. Sean?
John Fergus, 135 Maple. Thought that might want to go back. It just flashed through my head as you were talking. If they close the schools and put the referendum on, I believe there's a large number of people out of vindictiveness, whatever you want to call it. You close my school, you ain't getting the money. They'll lose on both ends. You know, they'll kill the referendum, I suspect, if they close the schools.
Well, thank you. Any further comment? Hearing none. So thank you very much for the report.
Mayor,
Yes.
is there any plan on any council members to attend the February 12th meeting? If so, to avoid the problem we had last time, to fall in line with Titusville, I was going to write a letter to the school board requesting the same seating arrangements and a time certain, should any council person want to say anything or not. I don't know what the wishes are, but I wanted to offer up that I would be willing to do that if someone decides they wanted to go.
I guess the question I have is they're not gonna take any public comment, so us attending is not gonna, other than a show of force, we're not gonna be able to speak, is that right?
I don't.
That's basically what they said at the last public hearing, was that they said, we're going to do the public hearing tonight because on the 12th, we're not taking public comment.
In that case, I guess.
And then they made everybody wait till 9:30.
Right.
Yeah.
And even though they came up with new information that they said they would present, but they still wouldn't allow comment on the new information. So,
Well, the only thing I could suggest, and it's up to you, Mr. Mayor, is that you would write a letter reaffirming our position and support for keeping those schools open and send it to each of those people. That's the only thing that's the only way we could get our comment in, other than attending, if
we'll do it. Okay. Thank you. Any further?
I was asked to look at the interlocal agreement to find out whether or not there were requirements that the school board was required to go through, which I did, and also looked at some statutes. And I don't know what the school board has or hasn't done as far as notification to the city, but there's requirements in the statutes about what they're supposed to do as far as working, quote unquote, with the local governments, affected local governments. So I don't know if you would like to have that when you go to the meeting or before the meeting, or...
I'll get it from you before.
No, no, Frank.
I said I'd get it from him before. And if you want to make it available to Jeff so that all...
Well, I was going to send it to Jeff, but I just wanted to let you know that there appears to be at least something in here depending upon to what extent the school board has, in fact, informed or not informed affected local government, so...
And I think that was part of Titusville's position also, was the notification process was not what the agreement called for it to be. And I can tell you right now that, you know, we went up there and we're talking to the attorney for the school board, and, you know, as far as he's concerned, they made no mistakes at all.
We'll get it. Thank you.
Well, let me just give you an example of what's in the statute. It says, annually prior to the adoption of the district school budget, each district school board shall provide a tentative district educational facilities plan that includes long-range planning for facility needs over 5, 10, and 20-year periods. The plan must be developed in coordination with the general purpose local governments and be consistent with a local government comprehensive plan. And then as far as what's provided, the plan is to include an inventory of existing school facilities, which includes any anticipated expansions or closures of existing school sites over the 5, 10, or 20-year periods must be identified. So I don't know if they've ever done any of that ever. So I don't.
They did the plan September 25th, and there was no school closures in there. But they did deliver that plan exactly as that says, but there was no school closures in there.
According to what he just read, that violates what the agreement is.
I'll get with. So, I mean, that's one of the things that I read in the statute, that I don't know what the school board has or hasn't done as far as following what's in here. So
you might want to frame that letter along those lines.
Yeah.
So you want it to be a resuscitation of the things that have not been done to make a decision to close the schools? Is that the approach you want to take?
Precondition.
One last
That'd be the strongest position to
iteration.
take. That's the only thing we haven't said.
And you can also look at it from the point of view, and you can add to the letter the fact that all the new information that has come to light, we have not been able to publicly address, because they've closed off public comment on the things that happened between the last meeting that we went to and the meeting on the 12th of February. Because all of these things that they're talking about, even the meeting that John attended, those were public meetings that the public should have the opportunity to comment on. And we're being shut out of the process as the public.
Okay. Good. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to agenda item number 11, discuss, take action on salary survey.
Yes, sir. The staff was asked to look into a salary survey and what the plan would be in the general costs. In your agenda package, you'll find the March 2005 salary survey from Cody and Associates. I contacted Cody and Associates, and in fact, we've used them multiple times, actually. I thought it was just twice, but in doing a little bit of getting some of the paperwork from staff, it was more than a few times that we used Cody and Associates. Anyway, they would redo the survey basically the same way that they did. The price would be $4,000. I also was given information about the Florida League of Cities at our meeting that indicated they might have a lot of that information, and to look into that and see if we can basically get the same thing without having to pay the $4,000. I looked over all of the stuff that they had on the Florida League of Cities website, and it was very, very good information, and there was a lot of information, but it wasn't complete, and it didn't give what I believe would be the necessary information that the council would need to make an educated decision. And just as an example of, they would have a category of firefighter, paramedic, and they would list like 4 local areas, and they would give a starting salary, a max salary, and then an average salary. Well, it's not really going to help you if, whereas the Cody and Associates did a firefighter with this education that was here 5 years makes this much compared to the same person in another agency with the same qualifications. And I believe, but it's certainly the council's direction, that would be more inclined, or that would be more the information that you would need to make an educated decision. But there is good information on the website. But again, it's not comprehensive. It would take staff time to put it all together, and then we'd certainly have to fill in the holes. Because I would suspect if I were to bring a product to you and only have 4 comparisons when there's 14 municipalities, you would probably ask me what do the other ones do and why did I pick those, et cetera, et cetera. So that would be a staff issue. So it's really just those are the 2 options. Then there's a third option of just calling around to different people that do it. However, I will say that from the people I've talked to, plus talking to Cody and Associates, the price would be a lot higher if they came in scratch, whereas Cody and Associates has all the data and all the backup and all the history. That's why the price, and by the way, in 2005 we paid $5,500, and the price is lower because all the data is in-house and it just needs to be, I guess, updated rather than recreated.
Thank you. Council comments?
Just, where is the money going to come from?
Once we get a decision to find out where we're going with it, but as of right now, it would be fund balance.
Let me ask a question on that, because why using fund balance? Is there money from administration or something that's not being used was, let's say, allocated for salaries or salary position that we're not going to fill, so what money could come out of that rather than take it out of fund balance? And the other thing is if Brenda, when we do this report, is kind of some ideas of where that.
Well, the other idea is salaries. I'm not sure that would be appropriate because of the search for the city manager, and we've already calculated that.
Okay.
The other option was the $30,000 for the study that was budgeted last year that never got done, the professional study, the efficiency study. Thank you. And I think some of the money, according to Brenda, was spent, but not all of it. But we have to get all the tallies together to find out. But I think it's possible that it can come from that study money. But I don't know yet because we didn't get together as far as all the options.
I'm thinking not in the budget. I don't think it's in there.
Well, I saw it, but I just don't know what we spent out of it.
It was removed for further departmental study.
If we could look at it, because I know if I'm going to spend money, which I think is probably worthwhile, we do get this so we know where we're standing. We haven't done one in 7 years. I'd just like to have a little bit more here in front of us from the financial end of where it comes from.
And if the direction is to go with the option that is going to cost money, then we will come back with where it's coming from, exactly how and why. But rather, I didn't I wasn't sure where the direction was going to be, so.
So the direction we're giving him is that we would certainly like to do the Cody and Associates, and
Right, that's what we're
Just
going
looking for where the money's
to
coming.
decide.
Just looking for where the money's coming
Too, is
from.
where the money, if I was going to make that decision, where is
Okay.
that money coming from?
Okay.
So,
We still have enough lead time, because they would take 30 days, so we still have enough lead time to have this information back
for the next,
in time for budget preparation.
okay.
I'll get with you.
All right. Let me open up for citizens' comments. Are there any citizens' comments? Hear none, bring it back to council. Council direction.
Send it back to staff and, let them let us know where the $4,000 is coming.
And use Cody and Associates.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I'd like to do.
Councilman Medina, is that?
Okay. What do you think the time will be, turnaround time will be on this, Jeff? Any ideas?
At the next meeting, we'll find out where the money's coming from, assuming that wherever the proposed money's come from. Assuming that meets council's approval, then it's 30-day turnaround time from the time they're notified to come in.
Do we need to contact them for any letter of agreement to do this during that period of time? Is there something that council has to execute in order to?
I think it's going to be the same thing that's in the council package, it's just going to be duplicated, change the names and the date kind of thing, but I'm going to look over it, and of course, I'll have Vita look at it as just, if it's anything that's to do with if it's contractual more than just a letter of engagement, which I believe is all that it's going to be, is a letter of engagement.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on, agenda item number 12, discuss take action on goal setting for 2013. Would you like to start?
I got mine.
I think she's got goal settings for all of us.
No, just sharing mine. Sharing mood tonight. And this is a starting point. I do think,
Why don't you read them all out so that we can go over them?
no, it's going to be a surprise. Okay. One, restore stability to city government, get administrative house in order, hire a permanent city manager, determine optimal organizational structure and in-house staffing, increase core of new and experienced volunteers. Two, restore stability to community redevelopment agency, bring all CRA staffing in-house, update redevelopment plan and all CRA governing documents, reinvigorate redevelopment planning, engage CRAC to the fullest extent, resolve unsettled issues regarding CRA funds, and address issues viewed as impediments to new businesses such as undersized lots, etc. 3, improve the city's business environment, streamline permitting process, including online permitting, simplify board approval process for site plans, facilitate Pelican Coast development wherever possible. 4, modernize technology, acquire RMS for police department, improve automation in the finance department. 5, enhance communication with residents, resume professional quality Beachcaster on a continuing basis, use social media, Facebook and Twitter, create a city manager's blog, and redesign the city website for simplicity and ease of locating content. 6, jointly with staff, pursue savings in retirement and OPEB, which is the benefits costs. 7, resume short and long-term planning, create a capital improvements plan, and update the comprehensive plan.
She included all my stuff.
Cheryl?
Motion to adjourn?
Suits you? I mean,
I
you
do have a couple things. The CIP is really important. A lot of the other things were covered. I think special events are,
for special
yeah.
events? Okay.
And then we had talked last year about setting up meetings within the communities, like little districts and council people meeting in those districts with the police to just see what some of the issues are and then bring that feedback. That was former
Community
meetings. We just didn't have time to do it.
The biggest issue is the notification of the community. With Beachcaster, they were able to do that. And we can certainly do that. We've had several in the past. They weren't really well attended, and I think that without a Beachcaster and then having to pay to advertise it in Florida Today or just word of mouth, you spend a lot of staff time and you have everybody there and you put this big presentation on, you got 6 or 7 people because nobody heard about it. It's kind of tough. So doing that prior to having a publication that we know is going to go to the city residents that care might be counterproductive.
Well, I think we put it down in community meetings, and then we see how the Beachcaster and the notification.
And I think there were specifically two where we're going to bring the police in, and then they could, community policing meetings. So, because we have our town hall meetings.
Further?
You missed one. No, I think that the thing that we've talked about over the years that's evolved is the Communities for a Lifetime process. I think we need to get that back in there. I will tell you that I've slowly been working with Jeff and some of the department heads on really kind of formulating a process for that to bring it back forward, which I'll have for council at some point down the road. But I think it's something that we'll be able to use as not only a implement in this city, but a model for other cities as well. So you missed one.
Sorry about that.
Thanks.
You covered everything else.
You got everything else.
Dominic, have anything?
Yeah, that's.
Okay. The one thing I see on here, and we've got to do it, is create the capital improvement plan sooner than later, because that's also going to affect budget time. And
Yeah, I wasn't really prioritizing
Understand.
these, it was just a list that came out in this order.
I think that one is critically important, and we can't let it go another year. Except,
Yeah, I want to make a comment. I think that our goals list needs to be realistic. In looking over the list from last year, there was a long list, but I don't think much of any of it got accomplished. And I think that we want to have things that we really intend to pursue and then do them. When it comes to special events and the community meetings thing, frankly, I don't see that happening this year. If we're candid, by the end of last year, our city government was dysfunctional, and we are now rebuilding it. We're getting it stabilized, and we need to start walking again before we start running. And the special events, the community meetings, that sort of thing, to me is step 2 after we get all of these other things, which are really quite basic, that need to be in place before we can start getting fancy, if you will.
well, I agree in some part to that, Lorraine. Again, it's city goals. It's goals. Will we do every 100% of this? Well, hopefully we do, but obviously we'll do as much as we can. I think special events might not be as much as a council. It's one of our goals to see it. But I also think you could task the rec department, which I know they're working on special events. So I think that is going on at the present time. We had that beach day that I think Rodney Smith and stuff, and those things are going to happen. So the special event, because we're going to have some meeting on the special event coordinator, I know it's one of our goals to have a meeting on or a workshop. So I think that they're different than what staff from City Hall would work on. And maybe it's a rec department and rec board type of thing that we task them to do. In the community meetings, I think we do some of it right now in the meetings that we will meet the town hall. And if that expands, where we can add the police and fire into it along with us, when the Beachcaster or communications is put in place, then I think we put them down and see where we can do.
And I would like to add to some of these things, streamlining the permitting process, online permitting, simplifying board approval, facilitating Pelican Coast. These issues didn't happen just last year. They've been ongoing for years and years and years. And capital improvement plans, that was on the radar last year. Unfortunately, with the transition, it didn't happen. I think the city's webpage is a pretty decent webpage. I know staff works very hard on the webpage. It has a lot of information that wasn't on there in the prior years. Can there be more? Absolutely. But I think it's a very good webpage, and kudos to the staff that put it together.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think the goals are good. I think we can get them. And thank you. Any further discussion on the goals?
Move to adopt this list of proposed goals as amended.
I have a motion by Councilwoman Gott. Do I have a second? Second. By Vice Mayor Breimer.
Can we have, will we eventually get an update?
Yes, I'll update this.
And before we take a vote, let me open it up to public comment. Do I have any public comment?
Thought maybe I'd be able to comment before you voted on it.
We haven't voted yet.
Dale Abrams, I live in a CRA, and I commend you on your ambitious endeavor with these goals. And I would like to say thank you for including technology. I really do appreciate that.
Thank you.
Steve Headley, still a resident. Just to follow up on Councilwoman Demon's comment about, I'm sorry?
Did you call me a demon?
Freudian slip. Just kidding. Comment about the city's website. Just so you know, and I'm turning that to you, it's not ADA compatible, and it should be. Anytime you roll over a picture, it should give a description of that picture. It doesn't, it just says JPEG 1 or whatever. So it's not really, if we're going to do a redo of it, or if we're going to keep that same format, we need to get in line with the ADA on that.
Thank you very much. Any further comment?
Frank Conover, Sherwood Avenue. Excuse my ignorance, but okay, a beautiful list of goals. What happens now? Are you going to weight them? Are you going to prioritize them? Are you going to take each one and define how you're planning on accomplishing the goal and how you're going to track making it? I'm seeing a head shake, so okay. I don't know what your process is.
We will when we have them, prioritize them, especially a lot, Frank, is going to depend on the next 6 weeks here when we get a city manager in place and we task the city manager to accomplish certain goals here.
And so some of this will eventually end up going back to department heads too,
Right.
which will facilitate some of this stuff.
Any further public comment? Hearing none, bring it back to Winter.
Yes.
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 Yes. Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 13, items for next regular council meeting. If some of this we take action on ordinance 1063 is out for, will we have enough time to bring that back, or is that's going to take time?
I have a question on this number 7. It says update on quarterly budget report. Do we want an update on the report, or do we want the quarterly budget review? What are we talking about?
Yes, what I asked is I went and sat down with Brenda, and she showed me a quick report that we could see lined budget items, how much was budgeted, how much has been spent, and how much percentage of that is left or been spent. So that at least we can keep up with it. And if there's any adjustments that need to be made, rather than have them all at the end of the year, that we do them we used to do them every quarter. So that's what I was trying to bring back.
And that would be ready and prepared. I talked to Brendan, and it would be absolutely ready for that meeting.
Then it should be budget review, not an update on the report.
Okay.
We also need to address the CRA Advisory Committee charter. That has to be done by council.
Yes, I have that. Are we going to look at it at the CRA, because I had asked for the...
Not a CRA issue.
Okay, so the
It's a council issue.
bylaws...
Bylaws are CRA.
Okay.
But the charter for the CRA Advisory Committee is council, and that, you need to take a look at that, so that could probably go on this
Yes, that's fine.
agenda too.
I would like to see, I know there's, I'm hearing about these special events that are coming up. I'd like to get an update on the special events that are coming up.
Okay.
I got an email just recently from Carrie about some upcoming special events, and I thought I'd already emailed it out, but I'll send it again, but I got one from Carrie, and virtually every staff meeting, she talks about upcoming events. The suggestion you get about the skate park, by the way, she's working on that. She's been out for a couple of days, but yeah, I try to get those out as much as possible. And her and the special events coordinator really work very hard, and they have a lot of things coming up. So
Yeah, I'm hearing through the grapevine, there's a movie scheduled, but it's important that we're aware when the dates are so that we can make sure that we're getting people to come out to these events. Right.
yeah, she's publishing them in her publication and also emailing it, and we'll send it out that way too.
I see on here that the audit report, is that next? That's going to be in March?
That's going to be in March.
Okay.
Frank, are we going to look at some of the discussions on the capital improvement stuff? I mean, I think we need to have some of that information before we get close to budget.
I think each of the staff is working on that. Is that going to be ready? They're done. Why don't we?
Every department has already done, revamped, revised, looked at, and turned in their capital improvement plan, and that's been collectively put into a citywide document.
Okay,
it's broken out 5 into 10 years.
Let's do it.
Meeting in March, maybe?
Or do it at the meeting on the 20th. It doesn't look like we have.
You can do it on the 20th.
I think you've already.
Well, the 20th, we're going to.
Not that much.
There's not that much. We only have 2 items, 3 items. So let's do it on the, let's get it going.
Yep.
Out of sight, out of mind.
So, Mayor, just so I'm clear for staff, we're going to present you with all of the capital improvement plans from the departments, and that's the background, and that's what you need from us. And then we'll go from there with direction or.
Whatever direction.
What, okay, okay. I just want to make sure we were prepared.
Right.
The other thing you'll have come back is the salary survey information. That'll be on there again.
That'll be on there.
Right.
So we're doing all this on the 20th.
Yeah, I mean, there's only, if you look at it, there's only a few items, really. Okay. We've got a workshop on the 13th, so that's taken.
We have got to get that meeting done on the comp plan changes that are up for discussion.
Right, and that's supposed to come back to us from.
From Mr. LaRue, he's going to give us the list.
We've been playing phone tag. Jim LaRue and I have been playing phone tag.
Do we
I
have
think
any
he's
idea
done.
of when that might be scheduled?
Did you actually talk to him as far as?
Well, I talked to him today. He knows that there needs to be a workshop scheduled. I think right now he's got the transmittal meeting for March 4th, or whatever that first council meeting is in March. So you've got an opportunity somewhere in the between area to get a workshop in there.
It would be a special meeting, right?
It should be a special meeting rather than a workshop, because we can't make decisions at a workshop, so that means we just put it off till another meeting, so we need to get on with it.
Well, let's look right here.
4th or 5th, which is before the 6th, so we can do the workshop that day and then be
Or
able
the
to.
27th of February. We don't have any meetings that week.
Can he have it by then? Because I'd like to get this thing moving. It has been stalled now for a year.
Can you do the 27th of February?
I think he was pretty close to it.
Okay.
27th? Because there's no meeting
Yeah.
that week, and that gives us.
Special meeting?
Special meeting on the 27th.
At 7?
7?
The 27th.
I mean, 7 p.m.
At 7.
Yes,
Yeah.
sorry. Okay. Good enough for everybody? Okay, thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 14, appointments to boards. Let's see. Comprehensive plan, we need 2 alternate members. And we have Philip Welsh. Yes.
I'll make a motion to appoint Rodney Smith to the Comprehensive Planning and Advisory Board.
Second. Okay, can we add one more because we need 2 alternates?
The only other one that applied was Mike Chase, and I
CPAD.
personally would like to put him on,
Was Philip Welsh, was he?
No, Philip actually had changed it. He was at P and Z, and then
I
he
didn't put
also
that.
is possibly considering the CRA advisory.
Okay, even though it says CPAD.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so we have, you made a motion, please?
I made a motion.
I seconded it.
By me and Mark seconded it.
Okay. A motion by Councilman Montanaro, second by Vice Mayor Brimer. Any further discussion? Okay.
Public comment.
Public comment? Hearing none, bring it back to council. Lenore?
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay.
You want to deal with James Strayer on the rec board as an alternate?
Absolutely.
I'll make that as a motion.
I'll second it.
Have a motion by Vice Mayor Brimer, second by Councilwoman Deanan. Any public comment?
Can you include in that motion to reappoint Colleen McNatt as a regular member?
Sorry, Council meeting, that was an error. I had sent an additional, we had to reappoint her.
Oh,
Okay.
so we just need, so we just have the one vacancy.
Okay. Any further comment? Poll the council, please.
Councilman Dodd?
Yes.
Councilman Montanaro?
Yes.
Councilman Dean?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brian?
Yes.
Mayor Kusnick?
Yes. I think that's all we can get accomplished there tonight.
Are we going to talk about?
I'd like to talk about two things. We have approximately at this point 18 applicants to still be interviewed for rec. Now, how would you like to handle the 18? Some of the members of the 18, we know they sit on boards. Not to pick on Mayor Schechter, but we know Mayor Schechter, do we want to come back and interview every single applicant, or the applicants that we haven't interviewed or known in the past? What's the council wishes?
I think that consistent with the council policies and procedures, if we're interested in reappointing the ones who were on the crack when it was disbanded, then that would fall, I believe, within the wording in our policies and procedures that would allow us not to have to re-interview them. Under our policies and procedures, we would be required to interview the others.
Okay.
When you say the numbers that were on there, are you talking about just the
Well, it
last group that was there, or anyone?
No, the ones that were on when it was disbanded.
Plus the two that were on when we just abandoned the second one here.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And I believe those people would be Sal D'Amato, Ed Kinberg,
Rochelle and
Linda, no.
She wasn't.
No. Linda Page, David Schechter.
Okay.
That's it.
And we just interviewed Nancy Wilbur because we just put her on the rec board. So do we want to interview her again?
According to our policies and procedures, if it's a new appointment for a particular board, they have to be interviewed.
Okay.
But these names that I just called out are basically reappointments to the same board. So
we have 4.
Well, I have to be honest, I don't really think we're reappointing them.
We're just not interviewing.
We're just not interviewing.
Okay.
We're not reappointing.
Well, I just want to make sure, and perhaps these folks might want to be interviewed. You don't know that. Maybe they have a lot of input on the proposed plan or what's been happening, and maybe, that it's important to me, and I don't think there are that many.
We can ask them if they want to be interviewed. I mean, I'm not adverse to that.
We're just bringing it up to, we got 18. If you give them 10 minutes each, it's 110 minutes worth of a meeting. We want to get this board formed and get the CRA going. If you're looking at time schedule, the 13th we have a half hour. The 20th we would have a half hour. And I was hoping to get this appointed by the 20th so we could get going. If not, then it looks like we're going to have to.
60 minutes.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That way we'd have to do it, appoint them on the March 6th meeting and throw in, again, we had one tonight, you'd have one the 13th, the 20th, and the 27th. That's an hour and a half.
All right, I'm going to throw out a motion, see if it flies. I move that we exempt Sal D'Amato, Ed Kinberg, Linda Page, and David Schechter from the interviews.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilwoman Gotts, second by Councilman Montanaro.
Now, let me, unless they want to be interviewed, is that correct?
Yeah.
Is that part of your motion, or?
If they want to be interviewed, yeah,
If
sure.
they have information to share and they want to be interviewed, I'm fine with that.
Okay,
You know,
all
if
right.
he wants to amend the motion, I'll agree to that.
Okay. Amended motion.
Well, it was, I think my motion was that they not be required to be interviewed.
Correct.
That's fine. And I'll second it.
Okay. Further council discussion? Hearing none? Open up for citizens' comments?
Are y'all going to do any type of background checks on these people? No?
Not that I'm aware of.
Huh?
We don't do background
do
checks on
background
any other board we appoint.
Oh, okay. So they could be drunken dead big dads and sit up here, no problem?
Oh, stop. God's sake.
Just
Yeah,
saying.
Jesus Christ.
Ron?
Good resident, Satellite Beach. Isn't, what's his name, Allison also on the board?
He hasn't reapplied.
He hasn't, okay.
Well, put it this way, not as of tonight.
He's on here, and we already identified him as not having to be interviewed. We don't have to interview him, he was on the board. I mean, he's already on our list. That was part of the motion, for those 4 people to be exempt from the interview process. Okay?
What would we like to do meeting-wise? Do you want to throw in another workshop? Because you got 18 people, you might get more, so even though we took 1, 2, 3, 4 out. Well, right here, I have a list of what we have, plus 1, 2, 3, 4.
Plus, you'll probably end up with more.
And that's 18 that we haven't interviewed. So even if 4 more apply, it still leaves it at 18 because there's only 4 names that we said we would give them the option of interviewing or not interviewing. So we're going to do the 13th. You want to start? Let me ask you this question. Can everyone make a 6 o'clock meeting? I know it's tough, but I'm saying is it saves you a night from having to come. That would put 2 hours in with these interviews, and we might be able to get them done in 2 hours.
What would happen if some of the books aren't available on the 13th? They're just-
We have well, listen to me here.
13th or the
We got the
20th.
20th, too.
Mayor, if we end up having the special meeting on the 27th of February, wouldn't it be possible to do some prior to that meeting as well?
He's looking at possibly appointing people on the 20th.
Oh,
If we can,
If we could get them all in.
then we appoint them on the 6th. Is the 6th appointing them okay with everyone here? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay, then let's put it on the 6th, and let's do an hour meeting on the 13th, the 20th, and the 27th. That's 3 hours. And if we don't get them done, we can do another one, short one to clear up whomever's left on the 6th.
Okay, 13, 20, and 27 at what time?
6 o'clock. Sorry, but.
We'll do what it can.
Okay. I mean, I
I
just don't
agree
know
with
how to
that.
do this without doing a couple more workshops or special meetings in a week that we already have a bunch of meetings. Is that okay with everyone?
Okay.
Okay? Okay.
Before the call, I just want to say I don't support the exemptions. There's only 4 people that are going to be exempt, and it's only an additional,
Okay.
40 minutes. There's 18 people that are applying, and I would like to hear what everybody has to say based on an interview for those positions.
We have a motion on the floor that still needs to be voted on the interview process, or the ones not to interview or give them the option. Lenore?
Councilman Dean?
No.
Vice Mayor Brown?
Yes.
Councilman Montanaro?
Yes.
Councilman Gotz?
Yes.
Yes. Motion passes. No more appointments, so make sure we know the 13th, the 20th, and the 27th, starting at 6 o'clock. If we could break them up, give the people the option of those days and try to break them up as best we can. Thank you. Moving on to adoption of minutes.
Move to adopt the minutes of the January 9th regular meeting and the January 23rd regular meeting as submitted.
Second.
I like the new format that is here. The only comment I have is, if we look at the comments from citizens, the only thing I would like to see is what they spoke on. I don't need any dissertation, but it would just be like John Hawk got up and spoke, or Hawk got up and spoke about fences, or a fence. Just something that tells me what they spoke about under citizens' comments. Because if you look at under the agenda items, you basically know what they were talking about. But under citizens' comments, you really don't know what they were talking about. So I would just like to see what the topic is.
Well taken. I got a motion by Councilwoman Gott, second by Vice Mayor Breimer. Any further discussion on the minutes? Hearing none. Lenore?
Yes.
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 Yes. Passes. Any further business? Thank you all for coming. Adjourned.